In this world where humans and orcs coexist, orc women are our destined mates. In my past life, at the coming-of-age ceremony, I chose the golden glowing tiger egg. I nurtured her with rare treasures until she hatched, becoming the most gifted beast in existence. After elevating her to greatness, I discovered she'd always loved my brother, and utterly despised me, disdaining my frail body that hindered her path to glory. To pledge loyalty to my brother, she carved out my heart with her own hands. In this life, I'll grant her the freedom she craves, choosing another silver egg instead. Later, she collapsed at my brother's feet, voice trembling. How could you abandon me? Would you choose this golden egg or the silver one? The elder's familiar, kindly voice jolted me awake. The heart-wrenching pain now seemed like an illusion. Before me gleamed a golden egg so radiant in the sunlight it nearly blinded me. Yet I recoiled as if it were a man-eating monster. The silver egg paled in comparison, its surface shimmering with a galaxy-like iridescence upon closer inspection. These two eggs were meticulously chosen from the mystic forest, specially prepared for the family's heir apparent. Taking a deep breath, I cradled the silver egg and turned to leave. The elder stopped me, sliding the golden egg forward. This one better prolongs your lifespan. 1. The golden egg radiated vibrant vitality. In my past life, fearing death, I chose her without hesitation. But I forgot, my frail constitution was fundamentally incompatible with her boundless energy. Last time around, my younger brother Felix had to settle for the silver egg. Early on, Felix scoured the lands for mystical herbs, hoping to enhance his wife's potential while she was still in the egg. To everyone's surprise, the silver egg hatched into a gray snakelet that slept 29 days out of every month. Its cultivation progress was even slower. Felix utterly despised it and left it to its own devices. Yet the little serpent intercepted a lethal projectile with its body, reducing itself to writhing flesh segments on the ground. The crowd dispersed, leaving her forgotten in a pool of blood. That's when I realized Felix hadn't formed a pact with it. When a beastkin dies, their contracted human inevitably suffers backlash. Even newborn beastkin require a pact to survive. Without it, they cannot connect to the world's spiritual energy or embark on cultivation. I don't know how the little serpent survived alone, but I admire her sense of gratitude. The beastkin Yinji I hatched immediately broke our forced contract with me, only to renew her life by contracting with Felix right after. At that time, I was consumed with guilt for hindering her cultivation. When terminating the contract, I chose to bear the backlash myself. My body is but an empty husk, my days are numbered. Yet even so, Yinji denies me a peaceful death, on the eve of the succession banquet. A tiger's claw pierced my heart. My life became stepping stones for her rise. As memories faded, I caressed the cold, slippery eggshell nestled against my chest. This little serpent and I made quite the pair, both short-lived and equally forsaken. You need a robust orc to restore your health. The elder looked at me disapprovingly, his eyes filled with concern. I've been frail since birth, bedridden for years with only medicine as company. The family always treated me with special care. But my younger brother believed I was faking illness to gain favor and secure the inheritance. A man with limited lifespan has no ambition for power. Survival alone is hard enough. I let him pick first from all treasures, except when choosing a wife. The promise of extended life clouded my judgment, and I swiftly claimed the golden egg. Little did I know Felix already despised me to the core, especially after the golden egg hatched into the Beast King, a tiger girl with supreme innate talent. That was the final straw for Felix. Now, Felix watched in delight as I chose the silver egg, then eagerly scooped up the golden one, paying no heed to the elder's furrowed brow. Fate governs all things. This egg simply feels right to me. I stood my ground with firm reasoning, cutting short the elder's lengthy lecture, seeing his persuasion was futile and observing our mutual satisfaction. The elder could only flick his sleeve in resignation before departing with a sigh. After settling the egg in the prepared spirit spring water back in the courtyard, I immediately went to pay respects to my parents. Only in losing life does one realize how precious it is to perceive the world's wonders. Let bygones be bygones. I can't burden the present with the weight of past lives. After 3 ceremonial bows, I sought my parents' permission to live away from home, concerned for my health. They were reluctant to agree. Felix caught wind of the news and arrived, proposing to live elsewhere too. This time, my parents consented without hesitation. Seeing his sudden change of expression and the unmistakable sorrow in his eyes, I stepped forward to offer some advice. It's different for you. Our parents are trying to build your capabilities. Cut the noble talk. It's just favoritism. Felix didn't give me a chance to explain and walked away after saying that. We were once so close in childhood. Back in the chamber, I caressed the silver egg in the spirit spring. Most of its energy had been absorbed. The attendants eyed it curiously, wondering what kind of beast folk might emerge. Of course I knew. It was a serpent inside. I glimpsed her from afar several times, slender and delicate, swaying on tree branches in the wind. Each time, I thought she was dead, but when I tried to pick her up, she darted away in a flash. Our closest encounter was when she lay gravely injured on the garden lawn. Ants crawled over her body, I gently picked her up to tend to her wounds, only to be bitten sharply on the wrist. He forced a spirit stone into her mouth before succumbing to his venom, only to find her lifeless body when they next met. 2. What a wondrous feeling, returning from death with the power to alter fate's course. Though my life may be cut short, hers still holds boundless promise. As her husband, I'll fight for that future. I gathered spirit herbs and crystals, placing them in the sacred spring before replenishing its waters. The egg showed no response whatsoever. Even inside the egg, Yunji was never still. My first task upon returning from the apothecary each day was searching every corner of the room for her. I thought she was playing games with me, but looking back, she must have already disliked me then. I have some concerns about my future wife. Beast eggs differ from humans. They reach maturity while still in their shells. Only humans can help them hatch. Through dual cultivation and unblocking meridians, they embark on their cultivation path. Beast folk live long lives, while humans are fleeting, yet humans hold the key to whether beast folk can survive at all. In return, the orc will protect the human for a lifetime. I seek no reward, for the privilege of sharing a lifetime together is blessing enough. My egg hasn't shown any signs of life for 10 full days. That day, I carried her to the garden for a stroll. Rumor has it that Felix's golden egg hatched in just 7 days. At midnight, the golden light from the hatching illuminated half the sky, while a tiger's roar echoed through the entire clan. Standing by the window, I watched the faint crimson glow beneath the golden light, carrying an ominous aura. Though this was traditionally considered an auspicious sign, I felt inexplicably uneasy. In the previous life, there were indeed supernatural phenomena, but none as spectacular as what we're witnessing now. After testing Yanji's aptitude, her physical prowess and cultivation talent were both found to be top tier. The entire sect was busy celebrating, for beast folk significantly influence a sect's development. With Yanji among them, the clan would remain at the forefront for centuries to come. Seeking solitude, I wandered through the courtyard cradling the egg. At the bend of the path, a familiar golden red tail flashed by. It must be Yunji, not wanting trouble. I turned to leave. Yunji blocked my way. In this life, she goes by the name Scarlet. Scarlet glanced at the egg in my hand, tilting her chin up with golden eyes brimming with disdain. TCH, they say your talent surpasses our masters, but you're nothing special after all. She shot another glance at the egg cradled in my arms. How fitting, a sickly weakling paired with worthless trash. I shot an annoyed glance at Felix behind me. When a beast man oversteps, it's the master's duty to discipline him. Felix fanned himself with a folding fan, hiding his mocking smirk. Just stating facts. The beast man tournament begins in 3 days. Brother might as well surrender now rather than embarrass me with that unhatched monster egg. This isn't the time for arguments. With Scarlet's power level, I can't protect the beast egg. I tried ignoring him and kept walking away, but the creature suddenly started thrashing violently in my arms. My heart skipped a beat. Was it about to hatch? I immediately rushed toward the apothecary with it in my arms. They had all the necessary elixirs there. Besides, the contract can't possibly be signed in public. Felix signaled Scarlet to block my escape route while reaching for the beast egg. Let's take another look together. What exactly is inside this thing? The egg shook violently, my 2 hands barely able to restrain it. Get out of my way, I snarled at him. Felix sneered. Oh, even the ever-magnanimous big brother has his temper tantrums. Mid-sentence, the egg suddenly shot from my arms like lightning, smashing straight into Felix's face. The impact came too fast for Felix to dodge, sending him crashing to the ground with blood and teeth smeared across his face. The silvery streak of light tumbled back into my arms. I hastily covered the egg with my sleeve, discreetly wiping the bloodstains off its shell. Felix cradled his broken teeth in blood, eyes blazing with fury as he pointed a trembling finger at me. Scarlet, kill him. Battles were usually between orcs themselves. Humans stood no chance against them. Scarlet's form shifted as her hands morphed into tiger claws, lunging straight for the egg in my arms. I could only turn to shield the egg with my back when a searing pain shot through me. I coughed up blood before I could react. The searing pain in my back brought back memories of my past life, lying on that deathbed, watching Scarlet emerge against the light. For a fleeting moment, I thought she'd changed her mind and come to save me. My heart sank when I saw the fresh contract mark on his arm. We'd just broken that very bond this morning. Die. Scarlet raised her razor-sharp claws, eyes burning crimson, nails glinting with lethal coldness. An exact mirror of her past self. You're asking for death. Still refusing to let go, I clutched the egg tighter while my right hand found the dagger strapped to my arm, ready to fight to the death. A green blur sent Scarlet flying straight to Felix's side, where she collapsed to her knees clutching her wound. The parents arrived upon hearing the commotion. His face darkened at the sight of blood pooling on the ground. He immediately ordered 30 lashes for Felix's household. Felix let out a bitter laugh in furious indignation. Such blatant favoritism. I'm wounded too, why don't you just beat me to death and be done with it? The mother rushed forward and slapped him across the face. Did your sickly elder brother do this to you, or are you just a spineless coward? If you're trying to shift blame, at least pick the right target. Even if it was them, you're still utterly useless. I looked at the egg in my arms, quiet as a sleeping chick. Impressive, very impressive. Any orc daring to harm their master shall face doubled punishment, confinement in the water dungeon. Felix failed in disciplinary duties, 3 days in solitary confinement. The orc tournament begins in 3 days, and I gently pat the egg. Still no movement whatsoever. If you don't hatch soon, you'll be competing in this shell. Though there have been matches where 2 eggs just stared blankly at each other, but those were rare exceptions. Arriving at the tournament grounds, I was the only one carrying an egg. Watching the crowd's mixed reactions, I stood among them stroking my egg, praying for better luck, hoping to be matched with a gentler orc so I'd at least lose gracefully. I never wanted to come, but my wounds healed suspiciously fast this time. Father practically dragged me here by force. The elder advised me to keep an eye out for any serendipitous encounters during the tournament, cradling my egg. I figured this would be a one-and-done participation. Other clans proudly displayed their beastfolk companions, some demure, some alluring, others vivacious, each flaunting ears or tails as badges of identity. The Crimson Fox stood out most strikingly. Just sitting there was enough to make people lose their composure. Seems you still can't control your charm magic. The green-faced master forcibly transformed me into beast form. I found it amusing when the egg in my arms suddenly nudged me a few times. The egg began to stir within less than 2 hours. Could this truly be fate's design? Just like my past self, Felix was surrounded by an admiring crowd. Last time, my younger brother didn't participate in the orc tournament. He gave up outright since the egg hadn't even hatched yet. Scarlet and I climbed to the top spot step by step. 3. Scarlet's golden fur glistened in the sunlight, and I couldn't resist reaching for her ears, only to be dodged. She'd always been aloof, and I assumed that was just her nature, yet the very next day, I saw her deliberately wrap her tail around Felix's wrist. After that match was over, Scarlet grew increasingly distant toward me. She'd disappear for weeks on end without a trace. Whenever asked, she'd claim to be training in the wilderness. Yet my gaze lingered on the red marks on her neck, suggestive yet jarring. The first match was against a kitten. As my opponent gleefully drew me, the egg soared through the air and knocked the kitten out cold. Truly the first egg in recorded history. She came rolling toward me with a rumbling sound, then nestled into my arms and went completely still. After the match, I set her down on the ground and stepped back, hoping she'd move again. Nope. Not a single twitch. In the following rounds, she either got a bye or used her compact size and hard head to ram opponents' skulls, somehow scraping through to the finals. Off the field, she'd obediently play dead in my arms. Forgot she's the type who sleeps 20+ days a month. She plays way too rough, leaving opponents covered in bumps. The moment I try to scold her, she nuzzles into me, making my heart flutter. Whatever, worst case, I'll go apologize. On the nearby arena, Felix was storming straight into the finals. Scarlet gazed at Felix with adoration shining in her excited eyes. Elliot, you hypocrite, you chose me just to prolong your life, yet you'd confine me to this courtyard for decades. Recalling the resentment and discontent in Scarlet's eyes from their past life, he pretended indifference but was truly heartbroken. Sensing my distraction, the egg suddenly bumped into my chest. I couldn't help coughing twice, and she trembled like a guilty child before nestling obediently in my arms. Felix stood there radiant, arms crossed, eyeing me with a challenging glare. After multiple rounds of combat, Scarlet's cheeks flushed with excitement as her claws unsheathed involuntarily, tail lashing, clear signs of an impending attack. Let's make this interesting. Sign the waiver. Scarlet stared at the egg in my arms, her eyes gleaming with vengeful satisfaction. The crowd murmured, this was a losing battle. As humiliating as surrender was, I couldn't bear to see the egg harmed. This was a life-or-death match, and I could see my previous opponents who'd forfeited now cheering for Felix from the stands. I was 90% certain Felix had orchestrated this showdown to settle the score personally. Amidst the crowd's jeers, I reached for the forfeiture form. Felix clamped his hand over mine. You spineless coward. My grip tightened around the pen. I couldn't argue. Knowing death could come at any moment made me indifferent to everything. Nothing matters when faced with life and death. This egg of yours won't last long either. My hand paused as I sat down the pen. Turning to Felix, I said coldly, let's settle this between us. Felix first looked startled, then burst into wild laughter. How perfectly. This is exactly what I wanted. The audience was caught completely off guard by the sudden turn of events, the Elliot brothers turning on each other. Someone immediately went to fetch the family patriarch, others tried to intervene. But Scarlet blocked their path. No one can save you today. The plan was to sever your bond with the orc, yet you value her too much to let her take risks. Felix tossed his sword aside, a smirk playing on his lips. Wouldn't want people saying I'm bullying an invalid. I straightened up, ready for battle. I may be physically weak, but I'm no pushover, even unarmed. His orc-enhanced physique far surpasses ordinary humans. I could sense Scarlet's lingering presence on him. They'd been intimately acquainted. Dual cultivation brings tremendous benefits to the human race. Glancing at the egg rolling restlessly by the side, clearly agitated, my wife is still in her egg form. How I wish to see her human manifestation. Then we must win. To win, it has to be a quick battle. I can't handle prolonged warfare. He obviously knows stamina is my greatest weakness. Take the stage, watching my younger brother launch a fierce punch. I sidestepped to avoid it. The fist came whistling through the air. One hit from me would end this match for good. My dodges grew sharper by the second. Seizing the moment to counter, I thrust my sword toward his eyes, but he suddenly drew a dagger, deflecting my blade with brute force. Dodged just in time. Seeing the torn sleeve made me even more cautious. His gaze burned with hatred. Even in my past life I never understood why bother finishing off a dying man, yet we shared the same mother's womb. I feigned unsteadiness, leaning my body slightly, and Felix predictably seized the moment to strike. Just as his fist was about to connect with my face, I extended both hands, using softness to overcome hardness as I entangled his arm, elbows, knees, fingertips. Every part of my body channeled full force to strike precise pressure points. My strike was swift and merciless. This was the moment I'd waited for. A single decisive blow. The crowd erupted in cheers and gasps. Scarlet stared in disbelief at Felix lying defeated on the ground. How could he be stronger than the master? The force of his punch still sent me reeling backward several steps, blood gushing uncontrollably from my mouth. Felix fared worse, collapsed on his knees, limbs twitching uncontrollably. I picked up the dagger he dropped and advanced toward him step by step. With terror in his eyes, I drove the blade into his chest. Disbelief flashed in his eyes, then sheer terror. Brother. Since he proposed this fight to the death, no one could object if I killed him here, but my strength failed me, and I collapsed unconscious on the stage, severely injured. I fell into a coma. In my haze, I heard my parents say I might not make it. I couldn't compete in the remaining matches, and my brother was severely punished at home, bedridden with injuries. Elliot's family instantly lost their chance to claim the top spot. My parents flew into their usual rage. They cut off my medication yet kept me barely alive. Unlike the physical torture Felix endured, this punishment was tailor-made for me. Every waking moment was haunted by the specter of imminent death. Time and again I felt life slipping away, convinced death was certain, lying alone in bed, consumed by despair. Yet against all odds, dawn broke the next day. The joy of miraculous survival lasted but a fleeting moment. As long as I remain in this family, this torment will never end. In my half-asleep state, I heard a series of crackling noises, yet no one entered. Then, the metallic tang of blood reached my nostrils. A chilling presence drew near me. I desperately tried to struggle to my feet. Even opening my eyes felt like an immense effort. Something soft and cool pressed against my lips, sending a refreshing sensation flowing down my throat. My body was healing at an astonishing rate. In but a moment, my eyes fluttered open. The pale moonlight bathed all earthly things in its glow. Never had light been so brilliant, like daylight, yet without the sun's scorching heat. The Milky Way wheeled across the heavens. No splendor could rival those silver eyes before me. A silver-haired girl with gleaming eyes lay on my chest, tilting her head as she watched me, her forked tongue occasionally flickering to taste my scent. The little gray snake, it hatched, a tail slipped beneath the covers, coiling up my leg with serpentine grace. The friction of icy scales briefly warmed before cooling again. The tail tip brushed against an unmentionable place. A muffled moan escaped my lips. The little snake grew curious, inching forward with tentative exploration. No, don't move. The girl pouted when she heard me protest. Her forked tongue brushed against my cheek like velvet, almost as if trying to soothe me. The tail began shifting slowly. Just as I started to relax, its tip coiled around me tighter, growing increasingly bold. A flash of white light surged through me, filling my limbs with renewed strength. Gasping for air, I gradually propped myself up. The serpentine figure retreated slightly, tilting its head as it studied me, then extended a luminous hand to trace slow, deliberate circles across my lips. Red. The voice was soft, carrying the serpentine chill. Yet the lingering tone inexplicably held a hint of intimacy. The sickly figure's lips and gaunt face were pallid, something the little serpent seemed particularly concerned about. As her fingers trailed downward, I caught her hand. The others all had robust, healthy physiques, though I stand tall at 8 feet. My gaunt and pallid frame makes people joke that a strong breeze could knock me over. I worry my orc wife might find me unappealing. Last lifetime when Scarlet bound our contract. Her eyes filled with disgust at the sight of my body, shoving me aside the moment our pact was sealed. The willful serpent narrowed its eyes at my protective grip on my clothes, letting out a derisive snort. She pried my hands away forcefully, her fingers exploring curiously left and right, white, pink. Her blunt words made my face burn with embarrassment. I tried to push her away, only to realize her bare torso beneath the long hair left my hands with nowhere to rest. Let her fool around for a while, then remembered there was something important about the contract. Where did you hatch? I recalled sending word to my trusted aide before taking the stage. If anything happened to me, they must take the beast egg. The little snake gestured toward the nearby spirit spring pool, where shattered eggshells littered the ground. Someone tried to kidnap me, knocked me out, but I managed to hop back on my own. Impressive. I praised while secretly planning compensation for my trusted aide. The little serpent guided my hand to the nape of her neck, exposing her most vulnerable spot without hesitation. She cooed softly in a pleading tone, a pact, stroking the back of her neck. I met the serpent's gaze solemnly. Only a standard contract is possible. I'm afraid my failing health might become a burden to her at any moment. Nor do I want her to think I'm contracting with her just to prolong my life. Scarlett was the one who initially proposed a standard contract. It does help with my recovery, though it's several times the energy cost, so Scarlett thinks I'm holding back her cultivation. I won't let the tragedy of my past life repeat itself. The little serpent's expression turned icy. In a flash of white light, the maiden vanished, leaving only a silver-white snake coiled on the bedding. I reached out to explain, but the little snake whirled around and bit me. I chuckled and spoke up. Trying to poison me again. Hearing this, the little snake blinked its eyes, surprisingly released its bite, and coiled around my wrist instead, so easily appeased. No candlelight remains. The sun is about to rise, yet the moon's glow lingers stubbornly. The silver moonlight dares rival the rising sun. It suddenly occurred to me, this must be the vision she hatched. These two beast eggs that survived the grueling selection process couldn't possibly be ordinary. Only then did I have time to survey the bedroom. The metallic scent of blood upon waking wasn't imagined. 3 corpses lay sprawled near the doorway. Each bore a single lethal strike. They were clad in black night robes, trying to finish me off while I'm down. Out of habit, I reached to pet the egg. My hand met empty air before remembering the little snake was coiled around my wrist. It's Felix. The little snake grumbled from inside my sleeve. That confirms my suspicion. Someone will naturally take care of this here. I brought the little snake to the pharmacy. 5. At the very back lies a hidden chamber. Everything required for the contract is prepared. The little serpent remained displeased, yet willingly took human form to establish the pact with me. Is this how you form contracts with every beast folk? I kept the serpent at arm's length, almost as if giving her the cold shoulder. I took a step forward, leaving just a fist's width between us. Last time with Scarlett was just a basic bonding ritual. She practically clung to the doorway, let alone anything more intimate. Yet Scarlett's all over Felix, eagerly offering him her tail, something she never let me touch. As I drafted the contract, the serpent's tail slipped beneath my robe, coiling tightly around my thigh. My heart skipped a beat before settling. This lifetime would be different. Only after everything is resolved can I promise her a future name. The little snake's cool breath whispered against my ear, demanding its due. Luna, I just returned to my chambers to hear the attendants report. The enforcers filed in like a well-drilled regiment. The leader saluted me with clasped hands. The lady requests your presence. Suppressing my doubts, I followed along. Such grand formalities were rare. I had just taken my place in the front hall. Mother's voice turned sharp and stern. On your knees. I knelt ramrod straight, scanning my surroundings. Felix recovered his composure alarmingly fast. Scheming during the match will inevitably bring down the clan's discipline. When I turned to Scarlett behind me, everything became clear. Scarlett could no longer contain her beastly form. Claws, ears, tail, every feature had fully manifested into beastly traits. The fur's luster was gone, now dull as if dusted with ash, no longer radiant as before. Standing meekly behind with bowed head, turned out to be weekend energy harvesting. The gaze shifted to the mother's furious face. May I ask why you're angry, mother? Did you steal the millennial dewflower? Though phrased as a question, it carried the weight of an accusation. Elliot knows nothing. You truly don't know. Mother flung down a mirror. I picked up the mirror. To my surprise, my complexion was no longer deathly pale. I looked the picture of health. My hand instinctively reached into my sleeve and felt the little snake. Could the thing fed to me while unconscious be what Luna retrieved? I know you're unwell, brother, but there are other ways to recover. Why resort to stealing the clan's treasure? I glared at Felix kicking me while I was down. This is a crime I cannot confess to. Other spirit herbs are negotiable, but this one concerns the legacy of every successor. It wasn't me. Where's your proof? The fact you're still alive after my fist poison speaks for itself. Brother, at these words, Mother first shot him a withering glare, then she turned to look at me. The physician reported your meridians were completely severed, with little time left. My eyes darkened. No wonder even a glancing contact nearly sent me to the afterlife. Luna gave me a gentle nip to get my attention, then telepathically whispered in my mind, that thing was devoured by a flood dragon. My heart skipped a beat in shock. This world only has ordinary beast folk. Legendary creatures like dragons and phoenixes vanished ages ago. Even if I told her, Mother wouldn't believe me. I looked up and met Mother's gaze. It wasn't Elliot's doing. The reason I recovered is my wife Luna. I cradled Luna in my hands, her shimmering body curled up like scattered stardust from the Milky Way. It was Luna who forcibly sustained my life. Mother reached out to examine her, her face flickering between delight and concern. The potential is truly remarkable. I tucked Luna into my sleeve. Mother, please send someone to investigate and clear my name. I must tend to Luna's wounds now. With your permission, I shall take my leave. I bowed with clasped hands in farewell. Felix suddenly burst into laughter. Ha, not so fast. He produced a snake scale, and my pupils contracted sharply. Big bro just incriminated himself. This was found beneath the Millennium Dewflower. Cold sweat broke out across my back. How can we counter such damning evidence? How to protect Luna? No mere orc could have saved you. You stole the sacred relic, Felix declared with absolute conviction. Mother remained silent, which I took as tacit approval. Luna's voice echoed in my mind. I did go there, but only glimpsed from afar, before I could steal it. The flood dragon beat me to the prize. Gritting my teeth, I had no choice but to take the gamble. I scrambled to my feet in panic, my face betraying alarm. Muttering under their breath, "No, it really wasn't us," approached the mother, knelt down and clutched at her skirt in supplication. The mother heaved a long sigh. "The evidence is irrefutable." Felix swaggered over and dangled the scale before my eyes. I seized the perfect moment, snatched it right away. "How dare you destroy evidence?" Felix shouted angrily. 6. My mother kicked me clear across the hall, sending scales scattering across the floor. I lay gasping on the ground, several ribs broken. But from that brief contact, I was certain those scales didn't belong to Luna. There wasn't a trace of Luna's scent on them. I struggled to my feet and knelt down again. Among countless serpent folk in this world, the scale does not belong to Luna. "I beg you to see the truth, Mother," Felix sneered. "So you're saying some unknown serpent folk stole the most precious treasure from the heavily guarded Elliot family? Utterly ridiculous. How could a freshly hatched orc possibly break through all those guards?" I countered. "At least give me a chance to prove my innocence, Mother." After a moment's hesitation, Mother finally summoned the guards. A barriered beastfolk arrived. "She has extraordinary talents, able to track any scent." I presented the blood-stained silver scale as Luna trembled in pain within my arms, comforting Luna. I swore to make him pay 100-fold for the agony of scale plucking. The barriered beastman sniffed both scales carefully, then suddenly knelt down. My heart leaped into my throat. Was he also part of Felix's scheme? Not the same beastman. My heart finally settled as I glared at Felix with murderous intent. "But," the barriered beastman stammered, too terrified to respond. Felix had already lost heart, his scheme having failed this time. Seeing the beastman's reaction, he thought there might still be room for negotiation and barked sharply. "But what? Spit it out." The barriered beastman trembled as he pointed at the scavenged scale. "There's an extremely faint trace of draconic aura on it." The statement left everyone stunned. Their shock quickly turned into ecstasy. With the legendary beasts long gone, finding this dragon would cement Elliot's family as the undisputed foremost clan in the world. Felix's face bore the unmistakable hunger of someone who would stop at nothing. The trial ended with my acquittal, but brought an unexpected piece of good news. Mother immediately issued the lockdown order while secretly dispatching agents to search everywhere. Meanwhile, she summoned both me and Felix, forbidding us from bringing our contracted beast folk. Seated at the head of the table, Mother declared in an unyielding tone, "The dragon must never fall into another family's hands. Both of you will sever your beast folk contracts immediately." My face paled with shock. Yet Felix's eyes shone with approval. "Mother, you mustn't," I tried to protest. But Mother cut me off abruptly. "Silence. Whoever forms a pact with the dragon shall lead the House of Elliot. I don't want to break the contract, but if Felix becomes the family head, Luna and I are doomed to a miserable fate." I returned to my bedroom and gazed gloomily at Luna. Maybe we should just run away from home. Surely this vast world has a place for us. The moment I stepped out with Luna, orcs started tailing us. Anxiety gnawed at me. Mother had already tightened surveillance on us. That night, Luna shifted to human form, embraced me, and whispered what was wrong. With a sigh, I told her everything. Luna's face turned pale. Her tail stopped wagging as she looked at me with concern. Finally, she made up her mind. "Let's terminate the contract. After all, it's just a standard pact. I'll bear the backlash alone." I expected Luna to make this choice, but never imagined she'd ensure my complete escape from consequences. No, there are other opportunities. "Just let the other families find the dragon first." I quietly leaked the information. It caused an uproar. Many noble houses have begun scouting the lands, with some already coercing orcs into breaking their pacts. Though the contract's backlash wounds the human, they may simply forge new bonds with other orcs to prolong their lifespan. But orcs who sever their contracts find their cultivation progress permanently stunted. Mother's been pestering me about this repeatedly. The sooner the contract is terminated, the more time my body will have to recover. I've declined several times due to poor health. Felix remains inactive, while Scarlet possesses exceptional innate talent. The backlash is equally severe. He wouldn't act without certainty. A month passed without any word. Mother never brought up terminating the contract, just as I let my guard down. Dark clouds gathered and dragon shadows flickered through the overcast sky. He circled above each family once. Finally arriving at Elliot's household, everyone came out to watch. His true form was revealed, a legendary flood dragon. One step further, and it shall ascend to true dragonhood. Silver-black scales blotted out the sunlight. It spoke with human voice. "I am Darius. In gratitude for the Elliot family's spirit herbs, I shall form a covenant with their most gifted descendant to protect their lineage for 10,000 years." I've finally given up all hope. Mother only had 2 children, though gifted at birth. I was frail in health. Felix was in robust health and exceptionally diligent. Won't let other clan members compete for the dragon. Luna curled up fearfully, whimpering softly. Let's terminate the contract tonight. I'm truly happy to have spent this lifetime with you. As she spoke, Luna transformed into human form with tear-filled eyes, then pulled me from the window to the bedroom. Her serpentine tail coiled around, pinning me down on the bed. Her cascading silver hair obscured her face from view. Her tears fell in heavy drops. At least, give me one memory. Luna silenced my words as I wrapped my arms around her, just about to close my eyes. Someone smashed through the window. Luna shielded me behind her, eyeing the intruder warily. It was Scarlet. The usually majestic and arrogant tigress now looked utterly disheveled, her tail severed halfway, clothes soaked in blood. It was impossible to tell how many wounds lay beneath. Watching as I embraced Luna, Scarlet's golden eyes were bloodshot, her ears bristling as she glared at Luna with a vicious snarl. I could just devour Luna whole. I pulled Luna into my arms, shielding her from Scarlet's venomous glare. Scarlet saw me protecting Luna. She looked ready to pounce any second. I glared coldly, my tone turning even more venomous. Get out. Scarlet's composure shattered as she stared at me in disbelief. No. This can't be happening. You'll protect me as I become the most gifted cultivator, and prevent Felix from drugging me during the hatching ritual to turn me into a cultivation vessel. With Scarlet on the verge of emotional collapse, I transformed Luna into a serpent and rose from bed to leave. I realized with sudden clarity why Scarlet had seemed so listless last time. Even the hatching omens differed from our previous life. Felix would even stoop to harming those closest to him. Scarlet shrieked at my obvious avoidance, trailing behind me in fury. Just as I stepped beyond the courtyard, Felix arrived with a retinue of servants. Their ropes, clubs, and formidable beastmen made it clear they'd come to capture Scarlet. Scarlet turned to flee in panic, only to find there was nowhere to hide. She leaped behind me in a single bound. Felix smiled faintly and shook the bell. A murderous aura instantly radiated from behind. I ducked just in time to evade Scarlet's tiger claws. Rolling sideways to see her eyes had turned crimson, no trace of reason remained within them. Felix glared at me with malicious intent, a frenzied orc, the perfect weapon to end me. He killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Elliot's family has only 1 heir left, and the contracted orcs can be replaced again. Just a lapse in judgment. I've been practicing medicine since childhood. We've got no shortage of ways to stay sharp. As Scarlet lunged again, I flung a handful of powder at her. Then I darted to my squire's side. Before the stunned crowd, Scarlet froze in place, bewilderedly scanning her surroundings. When her eyes fell upon Felix, pure hatred flashed in her gaze as she suddenly lashed out with clawed fingers. Felix stood fearless as the orcs behind him swiftly moved to shield him. Scarlet suddenly pivoted and lunged toward me, yet never reached me. Multiple blades pierced through her body. She collapsed 5 feet away, blood blossoming like fireworks. Her outstretched hand and sorrowful eyes brimming with apology, warm blood splattered across my face and clothes. Felix stepped forward, pinning Scarlet beneath his foot, yet his gaze remained fixed on me. A cornered beast's last stand, his cruelty reached new depths that shocked even me. Scarlet was barely breathing, her hand straining forward as she looked in my direction, her voice trembling with the question, "How could you abandon me?" Felix's face twisted in rage as he ground Scarlet's fingers beneath his foot. He gave me a forced smile. What a fickle bastard, daring to have the audacity to crush on you. He stepped close and whispered in my ear, "He's supposed to be my contracted beastman, yet she called out your name in bed. She deserves to be torn limb from limb." Watching the madness contort his face, I instinctively took several steps back. What a lunatic. Here today, gone tomorrow. The site was left with nothing but golden fur and dark bloodstains. I took Luna to the pharmacy. Power Cloudsman's judgment. I must fight him to survive. Force-fed Luna some potent restorative pills. I retrieved the blood jade Scarlet had concealed with her body when she lunged at me. Had Luna channel spiritual energy, revealing just a few brief lines. I was so startled that I jumped to my feet, knocking over the ink bottle beside me. Though I don't know when Scarlet regained her past life memories, the events after my death were truly extraordinary. After swallowing the pill, Luna asked me what we should do. I already had a plan, and now I've incorporated Scarlet's information into it. I'm even more convinced that I'm right. I picked up Luna and kissed the corner of her lips. Her face flushed crimson as she closed her eyes, and I passed the medicine from my mouth to hers. Watching Luna faint in my arms yet still instinctively lean closer, I made a silent vow in my heart. Wait for me to come back and marry you. If I don't return, forget about me. I forcibly terminated the contract. I'll bear the backlash. I stepped into the hall with a pale face. Mother nodded with faint satisfaction as she saw both Felix and I were freed from the contract, yet she clearly disapproved of the backlash wounds I bore. These consequences should fall upon the orcs. Noticing my sorrowful expression, Mother spoke with undisguised disdain. The mercy of women. Tomorrow is when Lord Jialong chooses his contractor, so today I'll take you all to receive the legacy. As for who gets chosen, that depends on your strength. Mother led us to a secret chamber. Father was already waiting there. The two magic circles were glowing brightly, standing at the center of the array. A powerful suction force seemed to tear at both body and soul. Father instructed Felix and me to draw blood. Without hesitation, Felix bit his finger and let the blood drip into the formation. Mother took out a jade pendant and was about to place it at the center of the magic circle. I pointed at the formation beneath our feet. It seems to have stopped working. Both parents looked anxious as they rushed over to inspect it together. Everything seems fine. The blade concealed between my fingers slashed across my parents' arms in a flash. Blood seeped into the array, souls departed. Felix remained motionless, still bleeding. I lifted the jade pendant and activated the formation. This isn't an inheritance array at all, it's soul separation. What Scarlet tried to tell me confirmed my suspicions. My parents kept pushing me toward death to enhance my psychic abilities, to temper Felix's physique. Then through the ritual array, my soul shall merge with Felix's body. They aim to create the ultimate human specimen. If successful, swap humans and orcs once more. Humans could then embark on the path of immortal cultivation using orc bodies. This defies the natural order itself. No wonder a flood dragon appeared in Elliot's family. Scarlet said that in my past life, my parents flew into a rage when I died, undoing years of careful planning in an instant. They immediately threw both Scarlet and Felix into the ritual array. It worked, yet it failed. Felix lost control of the orc body, descending into madness. Scarlet could control human bodies, but aged 10 times faster, surviving only a few days. Her parents were thrilled. With further refinement, eternal life was surely within reach. That's why the flood dragons slaughtered Elliot's entire clan in their past life, seeking merit to ascend as a true dragon. This time, it's happening ahead of schedule. The third hidden formation has emerged. This is the resurrected body. I placed a cage containing 3 rats, let these lab rats serve as their soul vessels for this lifetime, a living death. The next day, I stood alone atop Spirit Mountain, facing the serpent dragon Darius. I know my parents committed grave sins, and I offer my life in atonement. I only beg the dragon god to spare the innocent people. The massive head of the serpent dragon loomed before me. Its vertical silver-black pupils radiated bone-chilling coldness, with just a whisper of its breath. The air turned suffocating. The sheer pressure alone forced me to my knees in the dead silence. How dare they even dream of taming this monstrosity? I closed my eyes awaiting death as a familiar icy sensation crept up my arm. Luna. My eyes flew open as I hastily tapped Luna against my chest. My initial thought was to atone with my death to protect Elliot's family. Now I'm considering whether negotiation might be possible. Luna slithered forward smoothly, locked eyes with Darius. The audacity of this serpent, watched 2 vastly different snakes hiss at each other, yet showed no intention to attack. A ridiculous thought popped into my head. Father and daughter, then everything makes sense. Luna survived without a contract in her past life due to her formidable bloodline, so when the flood dragon appeared later, it must have been to avenge Luna. Darius dropped a box, giving me a fleeting yet dangerous glance. Soaring through mist and clouds, they flew toward the mystic wood forest. Only when I saw him completely gone did I finally feel at ease. Upon opening the box, the Lost Millennium Dewflower, 9. Based on my expertise in medicinal herbs, this is definitely older than 1,000 years. I lifted Luna up by the scruff, pinching her forked tongue between my fingers. Spill the truth. Luna confessed she also carried memories from her past life. That flood dragon's sudden appearance in our previous life was indeed her vengeance. I never wanted to take a hit for Felix. He drugged me when I was vulnerable. Darius could have advanced his cultivation further. To defy fate for Luna, he rewound time itself. I've loved you since our past life, but your eyes were always on that damn tiger, and she's still eyeing the pot while eating from her bowl. I pinched Luna's puffy, sulking cheeks. My dear Luna is amazing. We owe this second chance at life entirely to Madam. That's why I called Big Brother here early this time, to back you up. I fell into deep thought. I overcomplicated things, thinking it was for the greater good of humanity. You drugged and poisoned me. I'm still furious about that. Luna pinched my fingers, huffed as she turned away, pouting with that classic Sundara attitude of no explanation, no attention. I buried my face in Luna's neck, the sudden intimacy making her body stiffen. The cool touch and her unique fragrance made this moment feel truly real. I coiled my serpent tail around her, guiding Luna's hand downward while softening my voice to whisper breathily against her ear, Mistress Luna, please be gentle with me. Story 2, my biased grandmother threatened to commit suicide, so my dad exchanged the large apartment in the high-rise building for my uncle's small single room on the first floor until the extreme cold apocalypse came. My grandmother broke into my house and moved all the food we had stockpiled to my uncle's house. Our family huddled in a single room with walls on all sides, sharing the only remaining packet of instant noodles, but we received a video call from my uncle. In the video, they were sitting in a warm room, eating hot pot and drinking wine, with mockery and showing off on their faces. Later, my father dragged his frozen legs to the door of my uncle's house and begged them to give me and my mother something to eat, but they kicked him down from the 21st floor. My mother and I hugged each other and breathed our last. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back to 1 month before the end of the world. The feeling of hunger and cold penetrating into my bones was still there, but I heard my aunt's voice in my ears. "Uncle, look at Mom, she is like this, just agree to it." I suddenly opened my eyes and found myself sitting on the sofa in my home on the 21st floor. I was shocked. Wasn't I already dead? I turned my head stiffly and saw my parents sitting next to me, who died with me in that extreme cold apocalypse. My mother turned to look at me, her eyes instantly filled with tears, and her face was filled with indescribable excitement. I quickly checked the time on my phone. It was September 15th, still a month away from the cold wave. I realized that my mother and I were both reborn. I squeezed my mother's hand soothingly, telling her not to worry. This time I will try my best to protect my parents and send all those monsters to hell. I looked at the family of four sitting on the sofa opposite. My biased grandmother had a bandage on her head and was leaning weakly in my uncle's arms, crying, "Old man, why don't you take me away? You left me here to be tortured by this ungrateful bastard." She became more and more angry as she spoke. I sold all the land in our family and finally supported him to finish college. But he ended up working in a big company and became a city dweller. He turned his back on me and even stopped helping his brothers. I remembered that at this time in my previous life, my biased grandmother threatened to commit suicide, so that my father would exchange the large apartment on the 21st floor with my uncle's small single room on the first floor. My father studied hard since he was young, and was admitted to a key university in City A from the countryside. After graduation, he joined a Fortune 100 company. With his own ability, he allowed my mother and I to live in a large flat in a high-end building in this high-end community. As a result, after only living in the new house for half a year, my grandmother brought my uncle's family to find my father and asked my father to buy a similar house for my uncle's family. My father is a filial son. He gave them an additional 500,000 yuan and helped them sell their house in their hometown so that they could buy a house on the first floor of the same building. As a result, they sold the house and moved into a small 40 square meter room next door. Now they want my family to switch with them. My father didn't agree, and my grandmother threatened to commit suicide. At this time, she had already hit the pillar and was discharged from the hospital. My uncle also pleaded, "Brother, Dad died early, and it was not easy for Mom to raise us two brothers. All the money in the family was used for your education. I went to the factory early to save money for your tuition. Please help us. If you work in a large company, you can save enough money to buy a house in a few years." I couldn't help but sneer. The nose was really drawn on a piece of paper. The face is so big. Didn't he drop out of school and work in the factory because he was uneducated and had poor grades? Now they are using this to blackmail my dad. In my previous life, my father traded the house to them out of foolish filial piety and guilt towards his brothers, and was forced by my grandmother to take away all the food we had stored. In this life, if my father is still like this, I will definitely kick him out and just live a good life with my mother. My mother and I looked at each other and saw the same meaning in each other's eyes. Sure enough, my dad nodded, "Okay." My mom and I closed our eyes in disappointment, and then my dad said, "But you have to give us another million." My mother and I looked at my father. There was no such thing as 1 million in the previous life. I was about to speak when my dad stopped me. He leaned his head and whispered in my ear, "Faye, listen to Dad. Dad will protect you." My mother heard it too, and we tried our best to suppress our excitement. It turned out that my father was also reborn. My grandma was about to cry again, but my dad interrupted her. "I know you have money. Didn't the house on the first floor sell for 1.5 million? My house is worth 3 million, and I have to make plans for Faye. I don't want more, just 1 million. I'll go with you to transfer the ownership tomorrow." My grandma was just about to scold him for being a money loser. When he gets old enough, she can just give him a few tens of thousands of dollars to get rid of him. What else does she want to do? When I met my father's serious gaze, I swallowed my words. She had an eye contact with her uncle and aunt for a while. The three of them had shrewd and greedy looks on their faces, which made us feel sick. My grandmother knew that what my father said was right. They had all made inquiries and knew that the house was indeed worth the money. The property market had been good in recent years and the price might increase to 4 million in another 2 years. The 7-year-old cousin next to him was holding a greasy pork chop and yelling, "I want to live in a big house, Grandma. I want to live here. It's so beautiful here, and there are so many things to eat. Buy me a big house." My grandma, who favors boys over girls, immediately tried to coax her with concern. "Okay, Grandma will buy it for you." She originally wanted to get something for nothing, but now it seems that she can't get a big house without spending some money. But 1 million would mean extracting her bone marrow, and she couldn't bear to part with it. After all the tantrums, my grandmother managed to get the price down to 800,000. After transferring the money in person, she left angrily with her vampire uncle and his family. The door closed. The three of us looked at each other, then we hugged each other and cried. The memories of past lives were so painful and terrifying. After venting his anger, my dad told me and my mom, "Faye, help your mom pack up. Take all the quilts, duvets, and thick clothes, sell the rest that can be sold, and throw away the rest that can't be sold. The extreme cold apocalypse is about to come, and there is no room for my grandma and uncle." It seems that this time my dad has really seen the true face of those so-called relatives and made up his mind. Pack your things and move in at night. They had to move the things quietly to avoid being discovered by my grandmother and the others. These people are short-sighted and would grab the good stuff when they see it. After my dad finished speaking, he walked out. He was going to buy a new house. When we got to the door, he turned around and hugged me and my mom. "Wife, Faye, I'm sorry. Believe me, I will protect you this time." In his previous life, he was stupid and was kidnapped by family ties, killing his wife and daughter who truly loved him, and also causing his own head and body to be separated. In this life, their family must be together. The three of us split up. While my dad was buying a house, my mom and I packed up our things, packing and boxing everything that would be useful in the extreme cold apocalypse, and putting the useless things in a separate pile. After packing, I called the moving company and asked them to come and pick up my things at 1 o'clock in the morning. The moving company had never received such a midnight order before, and they tried to refuse the order with all kinds of excuses. 2,000. I doubled the price. The moving company was still hesitant. I continued to raise the price. 3,000. And you can take away all the rest. I don't mind spending money. When the extreme cold end of the world comes, you will find that money is useless. It is truly just a number. The moving company finally agreed. Near noon, my father came back and said that the house had been bought and a warehouse nearby had been rented. In the afternoon, my dad took us to see the house. The house is located in the suburbs, 20 kilometers away from my current home. It is a severely unsaleable community with an occupancy rate of less than 20%. 2. The house my father bought is on the top floor of the 20th floor. The area is about the same as where we live now. He was attracted by its cheap price and sparse population. After completing the house purchase procedures, we began to transform the house into a safe house that can survive the extreme cold weather. First of all, the door should be replaced with the most sturdy fireproof and explosion-proof one. A guardrail should be installed behind the door, and surveillance should be installed at the door. In the late apocalypse, people were short of food, and breaking into houses to steal food became commonplace. If these desperate criminals were allowed in, not only food but even lives might be lost. Then the walls and floors were all installed with thermal insulating rock wool panels, the windows were replaced with triple-layer thermal glass, and a fireplace was installed in each room. Solar panels and wind turbines also need to be installed on the roof. In the previous life, due to the extremely cold weather, the power equipment was severely damaged, and it was difficult to use electricity in the later period. After hearing our decoration plan, the decoration company looked at each other in bewilderment, but they were paid to do the job, so it was not unacceptable for them to have some strange requests from customers. The key is the construction period. We require that all the installation be completed within half a month, but time is tight and we can only spend money. The construction of the safe house proceeded in an orderly manner, and the next step was to stockpile supplies. My dad bought dozens of boxes of solid alcohol, fuel, batteries, firewood, large batteries, a dozen large-capacity power banks, and a human-powered rowing machine. It is unknown when the extreme cold weather will end, and it will be a problem if people stay in the room all the time. The human-powered rowing machine can not only exercise the body, but also charge mobile phones and other machines through exercise. Killing two birds with one stone. My mother bought quilts, down jackets and electric blankets for keeping warm, and also prepared more than a dozen boxes of common medicines. I am responsible for purchasing food, including canned food, compressed biscuits, self-heating hot pot, self-heating rice, shrunken vegetables, and other convenient and long-lasting foods. I also bought my mother a few self-circulating vegetable growing boxes so that she can grow some easy-to-grow fruits and vegetables indoors. All the things were moved to the large warehouse that had been rented in advance, and the most important bottled water had already filled half of the warehouse. After the house is renovated, we will move back in batches to avoid attracting other people's attention. There were still 2 days before the extreme cold weather arrived, and I was walking back carrying 2 large bags of things. During this period, we would hang out in the neighborhood where we used to live from time to time, making Grandma think that we were still living in my uncle's small 40-square-meter room. At the gate of the community, I met my grandma and my greedy fat cousin. My fat cousin is 7 years old and still needs my grandma to hold him. When he saw my bag struggling to come down, he tried to snatch it. I immediately hid the bag behind my back. My grandmother cursed me for losing money and glared at me. "How can you be a big sister? Your brother wants your things because he is giving you face." Why don't you bring them over?" With my grandmother's support, my cousin held his head high and reached out to grab it again. I dodged him and took out a lollipop and gave it to him, looking pitiful. "Grandma, my dad exchanged the house with my uncles. My parents had a big fight and my dad has stopped giving money to the family. I just graduated and don't have a job. I bought these with my pocket money. I really can't give them to you. If I give them to you, my mom and I will starve to death." My grandma glared with her triangular eyes, without a trace of sympathy on her face. "The house belongs to your father. He can give it to whoever he wants. What does it have to do with you, a money loser, and your mother, an outsider? It's none of my business if you starve to death, so give me the things quickly." She glanced at the 2 huge bags in my hands and frowned. "Send them home to me." I had no choice but to follow her inside, crying. It was just time to get off work. And the elevator going upstairs was full of people. Some gossipy neighbors saw the bags I was carrying and said to my grandma, "Grandma, why are you buying so many things?" My grandmother was very proud. My granddaughter bought it to show her filial piety to me. Those neighbors looked at my distressed face and curled their lips in disdain. My grandmother's moral conduct has long been known in the community. She exploits her eldest son's family, dotes on her younger son without any bottom line, favors sons over daughters, and even says that her granddaughter is filial to her and gives her beautiful things, which might have been robbed. They looked at the bags in my hands and clicked their tongues a few times. If these 2 big bags were full of food, they would be enough for the whole family to eat for 3 or 4 weeks. Right after delivering the things to the door, I left. When I got into the elevator, I almost laughed out loud. Those 2 bags look big, but they are actually filled with puffed foods that take up space. There are only about 20 bags in total, which my fat cousin can finish in 2 days, but the neighbors didn't know. They only knew that this family bought a lot of food before the extreme cold weather, and when food became scarce, they were the first one they thought of. When I got home, my dad and my mom were huddled together watching a tablet that showed pictures of my old home, long before we moved out. My dad installed 3 or 4 hidden cameras there. In the surveillance video, my fat cousin couldn't wait to eat 2 bags of potato chips. My grandma took a look at the bag and started scolding me. The insults were so harsh that veins on my parents' foreheads popped up. I quickly comforted them and told them to just scold me. It wouldn't hurt anything. I could still eat and drink delicious food at home. In the evening, my mother prepared me my favorite spicy hot pot, with fatty beef, fatty lamb and big tripe filling the entire table. We ate until our stomachs were full, then we huddled together, watched TV for a while, and then went to bed. The next day, I went to the original community as usual, carrying 2 huge bags. My grandmother was holding my cousin and blocking me there. She started pointing at my nose and scolding me, but because there were other people around, she stopped after a few words. "I can't even eat enough. Why do I buy so many potato chips?" I pretended to be timid and explained, "Grandma, these are high-calorie foods, and they are cheap. My mother and I only need to fill a bottle of water to eat 1 pack, so this saves money." My grandma snorted coldly and went to rummage through 2 more bags. His expression looked better when he found out that the bag did not contain puffed food. 3. Take all the things to my house, grandmother. As soon as I opened my mouth, my grandmother scolded me. When I went upstairs, I met the same neighbors from yesterday, and they started to flatter me again. I clearly saw them staring at the 2 bags with jealous expressions on their faces. The bag is big, but it's full of packaging assassins. The things that are actually taken out probably won't even fill the bottom of the bag. On October 15th, the extreme cold weather officially arrived. It was still sunny in the morning, and my friends were complaining about the fierceness of the autumn tiger. In the afternoon, strong winds began to blow, and the sky was as gloomy as if ink had been spilled. In the evening, heavy rain suddenly came and the temperature dropped sharply from 20 degrees to 5 degrees. Around 8 o'clock in the evening, the rain stopped and heavy snow began to fall. The neighborhood where we live is sparsely populated, but we can still hear the excited voices downstairs. Our city is in the south-central part of the country, and it doesn't snow much, let alone such heavy snow. Only my parents and I knew that this was just the beginning of the extremely cold weather. When I woke up from a nap, the snow was still falling and the streets and alleys were covered in white. I checked my phone and the temperature had dropped to -10 degrees Celsius. We turned on the air conditioner last night and it was warm inside. We had steamed dumplings, fried dough sticks and soy milk for breakfast. After the meal, we checked the stockpiled supplies again and lay on the sofa contentedly watching the surveillance. Grandma and my uncle's family also had breakfast. My aunt was cleaning the table, and my uncle was leaning on a chair chatting with Grandma. From listening to their conversation, it seemed that the weather was too cold and my uncle didn't want to go to work. My uncle has been lazy and gluttonous since he was young. When he came to the city, he asked my dad to help him find a few jobs. He either complained about the too much work or the low salary, and also blamed my dad for not being serious. Later, I found a security guard job in the nearby community, earning 600 yuan a month, just to watch the surveillance cameras and patrol. It was an easy job. I have little money to begin with, and I don't want to go in this weather. Grandma didn't have any objection. If you don't want to go, then don't go. Your eldest brother will support us anyway. We couldn't help but sneer when we heard this. These people were so shameless that even heavy machinery couldn't break through them. We really treated them as blood bags. The aunt over there spoke up. Mom, the food at home is almost gone. Can you ask your eldest brother to send some over? I saw my grandma picked up the phone and responded, and soon my mother's phone rang. I took it and started crying before she could say anything. Grandma, my dad is on a business trip, there is no food at home, and I have no money either. Can I go to your place to get some food? Grandma got angry when she heard this. You jinx, how can I give you food in this freezing cold weather? I continued to cry. Grandma, my mom and I don't eat much. I'll take the elevator up to get it now. We don't have anything. And I won't open the door even if you come. With a beep. The phone was hung up. Immediately afterwards, my dad's cell phone rang again, and the person asked me to bring them some food in a matter-of-fact tone. Mom, I'm on a business trip. I'll transfer some money to Zane. You can use it to buy some food first. My dad grabbed my grandmother's finger. Money was her lifeline. Sure enough, my grandmother said transfer more and hung up the phone. After the call, my dad threw his phone aside and turned on the TV with us. Before the temperature drops completely, we have to calm Grandma and my uncle's family down, so they don't come looking for us. There was a raging snowstorm outside and the temperature had dropped to minus 20 degrees Celsius. 10 minutes later, Grandma called again, angrily, why haven't you transferred the money yet? My dad looked innocent. Mom, what are you talking about? The money has already been transferred. 5,000 has been transferred. Where is the money? Forget 5,000. I haven't even seen 50 cents. If you don't believe me, I'll send a screenshot of the transfer to Zane and you can see for yourself. My dad winked at me and I immediately sent him the Photoshop transfer record. This is what I learned in college. I guarantee that they won't be able to tell it even if they stare with their eyes wide open. Sure enough, when they saw the transfer records, they became anxious. What's going on? Where did the money go? My dad also pretended to be anxious. Mom, I'm out of town and can't make it in time. I'll call the bank later. Vale is sick. How about I transfer the money to Faye and let Faye take you to buy some food? Grandma was afraid that I would take the money. Besides, it would be difficult for her to steal the money with me around, so she quickly stopped me. Since Vale is sick, let her stay with her mother. I'll go buy it first, and you can transfer it to me later. After saying that, I saw my grandma calling my aunt in the surveillance video, but my aunt found all kinds of excuses to refuse. It was so cold and she went out because she was sick. Grandma glanced at her uncle who was lying down playing with his cell phone, and had no choice but to put on her cotton jacket and go out. More than half an hour later, she came back shivering. Her head and clothes were covered with snow, her tied hair was all loose, and her face was covered with bruises. God damn it. A bunch of poor bastards went crazy and scratched my face just to grab a box of eggs. The temperature dropped sharply and the snowstorm continued. At this time, everyone started to go to supermarkets and shopping malls to stock up on supplies. The old lady is usually domineering, and she must have fought with others for supplies, seeing her clothes were all stained after she shook off the snow. It was likely that she was pressed to the ground and beaten. Grandma rubbed her beaten arm and handed the bag to the aunt, who took it with an unhappy look on her face. Why did you only buy so little? Grandma is the elder in front of me and my parents, and she is the real grandson in front of my uncle's family, for, she explained to her aunt in a flattering way that there were too many people and she would go there earlier tomorrow. After she warmed up, she started calling my home again, but we had turned off our phones long ago. My uncle's family was cursing and swearing, but we were in a very good mood. The three of us sat together and ate steak and opened a bottle of red wine. When I woke up the next day, the blizzard was still going on and the temperature had dropped to minus 40 degrees Celsius. I opened the curtains and saw all white outside. The whole world seemed frozen, and there was nothing that could move. The TV is full of news about extreme weather, and government agencies have been urging residents to take anti-freeze and warm measures. Messages popped up from time to time in the owners group of our original community, and from their chat records, we learned that the snow had already reached halfway up the first floor. My uncle and his friends were also in the group. They knew that we were forced to move to the first floor, but they didn't even think about whether we were safe. To them, the house is already in their hands, so our life or death doesn't matter at all. Although I had witnessed their cold-bloodedness and shamelessness in my previous life, I still felt terrified when I experienced it again. The cold wave closed the city, and the temperature is still dropping as if there is no end. Grandma and my uncle's family were completely out of food. As usual, she reached out to us. We didn't answer the previous call, but we did this time, listening to her bossing us to bring them food. I replied calmly, Grandma, we are eating hot pot. We are busy. After saying that, he hung up the phone and took a photo of the table full of food and drinks and sent it over. From the tablet next to me came the extremely obscene scream of my grandmother. My dad took the remote and turned up the volume of the TV to drown out her cursing. The snow fell heavier and heavier, and after another week, The snow had reached the second floor, the electrical equipment was severely damaged, with power outages for long periods of time, there was no heating equipment, and many elderly people had frozen to death. We have a lot of fuel and large capacity batteries at home, but we don't know when the cold wave will end, so we can only use them sparingly. When there is electricity, I turn on the floor heating and air conditioning. When there is no electricity, I use firewood to burn the fireplace and use the fire to boil water and cook food. There are people in the owners group constantly asking to share food and medicine. At that time, every household was extremely short of supplies, and no one was willing to give away their belongings. There were also a few people who showed overwhelming sympathy and, after saying a bunch of high-sounding words in the group, offered to share some of the food. As a result, within half a day, someone broke into the house and looted all the remaining things. In the end times, civilized order and moral ethics have long become a cloud of smoke, and the most important thing is to stay alive. After this happened a few times, no one in the group was willing to be a saint anymore. As a result, my uncle immediately posted the photo of the hot pot that I tipped to the group and tagged me. With so much food available in such an extreme situation, even a living Buddha would be tempted, in an instant. Everyone in the group was tagging me, using both soft and hard tactics, all asking me to take out the food. I watched a group of people jumping up and down without saying a word. Seeing that I didn't react, some people started to call me cold-blooded and selfish. I couldn't help but sneer. You don't know how painful it is unless the knife cuts yourself. I asked others to take out the life-saving things with just a touch of my upper lip. Don't say that I don't live there, even if I did. I would not give it to this group of evil wolves. After cursing for a while, someone finally reacted. I know this family. Weren't they forced to change houses by the biased old lady? Yes, it seems that they have moved to the first floor. I have also encountered this several times. A family of 3 lives in a 40 square meter single room. It's a sin. The first floor was blocked by snow a long time ago. Could he have died long ago? Someone else tagged the property management and asked if they had transferred us to a higher floor, covered with snow. People on the lower floors could only hold their quilts and be taken by the property management to a few narrow empty rooms on the upper floors. The property management checked the transfer list and didn't see my name or my parents' name. The group started to flare up again, and turned its attention to my uncle and his friends, calling them shameless for occupying other people's houses and throwing dirty water on others. Grandma and my uncle didn't know we had moved, and when they heard that we hadn't been relocated, their faces turned pale. Who posted this photo? They didn't dare to say a word in the group and quickly called me and my parents, but we had already blacklisted them. They became even more frightened when the call went unanswered. At this time, someone else in the group spoke up. Could it be that the family on the 20th floor ate it themselves? A few days ago, I saw the old lady's granddaughter bought her 4 or 5 bags of food. It's the gossipy neighbor who was in the elevator with us last time. The mine I planted is finally about to explode. Someone immediately agreed. I saw it too. Those bags are huge. They are enough to feed their family for 2 months. They must have a lot of food left. People continued to follow suit and said there were more than 10 bags instead of 4. Everyone asked my uncle to bring out the food quickly. My uncle was so scared that he lost his courage and quickly explained that those were puffed foods and had already been eaten by his son at home. But how could the starving residents believe it? A few minutes later, a group of people appeared on the surveillance camera breaking down the door and entering my uncle's house. The door lock over there had been broken for a long time. My uncle and the others must have noticed it, but they didn't want to replace it to save money. Now it allows people outside to come in easily. In the surveillance video, my grandmother and my uncle and aunt were trying their best to stop it, and my fat cousin was sitting on the ground, crying loudly in fear. My uncle was the only strong man in the family, but he did nothing all day long. He would lie down instead of standing. He had no strength at all. How could he be a match for this group of hungry people? He was beaten to the ground with blood all over his face after a few punches. 5. My grandmother and my aunt weren't much better off. Several strands of their hair were pulled out and their down jackets were stolen. They searched the house thoroughly and only found a few eggs in the refrigerator. The group of people were furious and unwilling to return empty-handed. So they went and took out all the quilts and blankets in the bedroom. As he rummaged around, he found a bag of instant noodles wrapped in black plastic bags, more than 20 bags in total. A group of people spit something on the ground. They were really good at hiding. The more they thought about it, the angrier they got, and they pinned down my grandmother and my uncle and aunt and beat them up. They don't know that I put this bag of instant noodles in there specially before moving. The only remaining food and warm clothes were snatched away, and Grandma and my uncle's family collapsed on the ground in a mess, crying loudly. My mother and I looked at each other, both of us feeling happier than ever before, compared to what they did to us in our previous life. These are just a drop in the bucket. It's just my dad. After all, he has been a filial son for so many years, and we are afraid that he still can't figure it out and still has sympathy for these people. In the surveillance video, my grandmother's wailing continued. She mentioned my father's name while crying, and my mother and I's eyelids twitched a few times. Could it be that it's only now that I remember how good my father was? If she came to her senses, based on my father's character in his previous life, she might really run over to save Grandma. As if knowing our worries, my dad reached out and embraced us, saying only 2 words. "Don't worry, he is filial." Not stupid. In his previous life, his bones were sucked out of his body and his whole family died miserably. If he still can't figure it out, he is not even worthy of being a human being. Fortunately, Grandma didn't say anything. This family of ungrateful people died, and they didn't even bother to send us food before they died. What should we do now? She rushed over and hugged her fat cousin. What should I do with my big baby? I felt inexplicably relieved. After all, a person who has been bad all his life will never become a bodhisattva until he dies. My uncle's family kept crying, and we thought it was too noisy, so we turned off the tablet and continued living our lives. The frequency of power outages was increasing. Even though we still had an entire room full of fuel, we didn't dare use it too casually. After all, no one knew when the blizzard would stop or when rescue would come. In order to reduce the heat dissipation space, we all moved to the living room and only turned on 1 fireplace, plus 2 high-power battery heaters. Although it was not warm, at least we could still live. When I opened the tablet again, I saw that my grandma and uncle's home had changed a lot. The blizzard has continued for more than a month, and the accumulated snow has buried 4 or 5 floors of the building. Residents on the lower floors can only move to higher floors, but there are only a few vacant rooms on the upper floors, and they have long been overcrowded. Some people couldn't squeeze in, so they lived in the corridor with their quilts. When the corridor was full, they lived in the emergency passage. My grandmother's house was the first one to be targeted because its door was broken into. As a result, 40 or 50 people suddenly rushed into the large apartment of more than 170 square meters. All the furniture in the room was chopped up and used as firewood, but at that time we had basically emptied the house, so there wasn't much that could be burned. Those people couldn't get any benefits, so they could only take it out on my grandmother and my uncle's family. The whole family was thrown to the far side like dead dogs. 2 days later, when Grandma was found, her body was stiff. Someone kicked her twice and said something unlucky. Suddenly, he turned and rushed to the kitchen, and came out with a knife in his hand. He stood in front of his grandmother and stared at her. The people around him noticed his look and quickly realized what he was going to do. A few people were frightened and squeezed to the other side, but at the same time more people gathered around him. The food is gone, and if you want to survive, you will eventually enter a world of cannibalism. We opened our eyes wide and watched the man raise his knife and slash, blood splattering everywhere, but none of those people dodged. They just leaned over and stared, and each of them had a terrifying, devilish look on their face. My stomach churned and I turned over and started to dry heave. After vomiting for a while, I looked back and saw that the tablet had been turned off long ago. My parents were leaning against each other with pale faces. The scene was too bloody and horrifying, but we all knew that if the snow didn't stop, scenes like this would become the norm. My uncle witnessed the entire process of my grandmother being eaten and was frightened to death. After the first time, those people seemed more calm and composed when dealing with the bodies of their neighbors, with whom they used to greet each other. People died one after another in the room. Some, like my uncle, were frightened to death because they lived in constant fear. Some were frozen to death because they didn't find a good place to stay. Some committed suicide because they felt there was no hope for their future. These people include my aunt and fat cousin. We finally avenged ourselves from our previous life, but our hearts are filled with emptiness and it's hard to describe how we feel. In this disaster that completely overturned a fiery civilization, no one was a winner. The heavy snow lasted for 3 months and the temperature dropped to minus 60 degrees Celsius. The water and electricity have been completely cut off. At night, the entire city is plunged into darkness. Looking around, the tall buildings seem like huge tombstones. More and more people died in this cold wave, and the survivors were increasingly struggling to fight for the remaining food. My parents and I drew the curtains tightly, carefully guarding the little bit of warmth we had left. There is less and less news about the cold wave on TV and the internet, and no news about rescue has been received. We still have plenty of food and fuel to last at least another year or 2. But what if the cold wave never ends, even though we have prepared for the worst? We still can't help but panic. That day, there was a sudden knock on our door. The occupancy rate of this community is very low, and there are only 5 or 6 families living in our building. I didn't expect that there would still be survivors after so long, but we didn't dare to open the door, so we quietly turned on the surveillance camera at the door. 2 strange men's faces appeared on the tablet, and judging by their ages, they looked like father and son. The 2 knocked on the door for a while, and the young man was puzzled. "Dad, are you sure there is someone in this house?" "6. The older man nodded. "I met a few decorators in the elevator last time. They were talking about this one. Look at this door. It's different from ours. It's obviously reinstalled." The young man knocked on the door a few more times and put his ear to the door to listen for a while. "Why can't I hear any sound? Could they all be frozen to death?" The older man said angrily, "Did you forget the garbage bag that was hooked on the railing of our balcony this morning? There are only two families living above us. The family on the 19th floor was killed by us a long time ago. Could it be that they turned into ghosts and came back?" My parents and I looked at each other and our faces turned pale. During this period of time, we have been collecting domestic waste in one room, but the water in the bathroom has frozen and the collected waste cannot be discharged, so the smell has become strong over time. They could only throw it out from time to time in the second half of the night, but they didn't expect the wind was so strong last night that it actually got caught on the railing of the family downstairs. Although the two men outside looked haggard, they were tall and strong men after all. If they opened the door, I believed they would definitely tear us to pieces. Fortunately, we replaced the gate and reinforced the walls, so they couldn't crash in even if they drove their car. No matter how hard they banged on the door, I stayed together with my parents and pretended to be dead without saying a word. After smashing for a while, the two people outside the door left cursing. We discussed it and connected the batteries and turned on the power grid buried in the outer wall. Sure enough, more than 10 minutes later, the two men appeared in the surveillance again, one holding a hammer and the other holding a wrench and an iron rod. This is a preparation for breaking in by force. We quickly took out the pepper spray, stun guns, and other self-defense tools we had prepared. Even if the worst came to the worst, we would fight to the death. The father and son first attacked the door, smashing the handle and prying open the cracks. But this door was made of military materials and could not be opened unless it was bombarded with a cannon. Seeing that they couldn't break the door open, they huddled together and talked about something, then began to dig at the wall beside the door, trying to make a hole to enter and exit. The young man was the first to smash the wall, but as soon as he touched it, he was electrocuted by the electric fence and his whole body was stretched like a bow. His neck was crooked and his arm holding the hammer was stiff and he couldn't move. The father was startled and realized that his son had been electrocuted, so he quickly hooked the wooden end of the shovel through his son's clothes and pulled him out. The young man collapsed on the ground, half of his body was paralyzed, and he couldn't even breathe. If it had been a little later, he would probably have lost his life. Only then did they realize that the house had been specially renovated and it was impossible to get in. The young man was dragged back by his father by his trouser legs. Deathly silence returned outside the door. We put down our self-defense tools and breathed a sigh of relief. After this incident, we lived more carefully and tried to minimize the traces of our lives, just in case. We worked together to move the cabinets and tables to the door, even if things took a worst-case scenario. We would hold it off for a while. Another week passed, and the heavy snow was still raging. The only thing to be happy about was that the temperature did not drop further and stabilized at -60°C. I don't know if the world will remain at this temperature forever. That evening, we each opened a box of self-heating hot pot, in order to ease the atmosphere at the table. My father talked about some embarrassing things in his childhood, which made my mother and I laugh so hard that we almost cried. But before he finished his meal, there was another knock on the door. We frowned and turned on the surveillance. This time there was a woman outside the door holding a child of 4 or 5 years old. The woman knocked on the door for a while, and when no one opened it, she began to cry with her face covered. "Please, save us. We haven't eaten for a long time. The child is sick and has a fever. Without food, she will die. Please give us some medicine and food." In the surveillance footage, the skinny child was lying on the woman's shoulder with his eyes closed and not moving. It was unclear whether he had no strength or had fainted. "Please, save the child. Please," the woman cried sadly, with tears in every cry. At the end, she collapsed by the door holding the child. As a mother herself, my mother can understand women's feelings best. If I were in such a situation, she would want to cut off her flesh and draw her blood to save me first. Her eyes were moist, and she looked at me and my dad with pity. "Why don't we just give them some food? They are all women and children, and they don't eat much." My father remained silent, and I was actually very conflicted. Even if we have witnessed cannibalism with our own eyes, we cannot completely abandon the bottom line of being a human being, and we cannot turn a blind eye to such suffering. But reason tells me that being kind to others is being cruel to myself. If there is a first time, there will be a second time. If there is a first time, there will be more. The ones who may come next are sick elderly people, pregnant women, and frail children. Can they help them one by one? The woman outside was still crying in grief. Her crying was heartbreaking and heart-wrenching. My mother couldn't stand the woman's crying anymore, so she stood up and went to get the medicine. I was panicking and didn't know what to do. Suddenly, my eyes lit up and I quickly grabbed her. I handed the tablet to her and pointed to a corner of the surveillance camera. Just a few meters away from the woman, a tiny piece of dark blue clothing was revealed. If you looked closely, you could see the clothing swaying slightly. I remember the young man who came last time was wearing a wrinkled dark blue cotton coat. That place was right at the stairs, and there were people hiding there. As soon as we opened the door, they would rush into the house immediately. My parents and I were all scared to death. It is obvious that the gang saw that their forceful approach didn't work last time, so they resorted to the strategy of inflicting pain on themselves this time. Our family almost became food for those people. Thinking of this, we silently retreated to the sofa, turned off the surveillance camera, and ignored the woman crying outside. The woman stopped sobbing, and when she saw that we had no intention of opening the door, she finally left. It was late March of the following year, and the family never came again during this period. I don't know whether they couldn't survive the cold wave or they didn't want to waste their energy on us anymore. Our lives go on. Although boring and depressing, we encourage each other and fantasize about a better life after the cold wave. On April 2nd, the heavy snow finally stopped. The world, which had been silent for a long time, finally had some sound, and the sound of helicopter propellers rang above our heads. A high-pitched male voice came from a loudspeaker somewhere, telling us that the cold wave was over and the government would send rescue teams to help us. My parents and I hugged each other with tears in our eyes. It was over. We finally persevered to the end. I wiped my tears and turned my head to see that a flower seed had fallen into a flower pot where my mother grew vegetables and fruits. It had sprouted and turned into a small purple flower. The ice and snow will soon melt, and the sun will cover the world again. Story 2. Before the zombie virus outbreak, I was so weak that I couldn't even lift a thing or carry a load on my shoulders. After the apocalypse broke out, I could take down a little zombie with just one stick. If that green tea bitch threatens me, then we'll just die together. 1. A week before the zombie outbreak, my wealthy boyfriend kicked me out of the villa. The reason was that he had slept with my green tea best friend. He threw me a check for 1 million yuan, then put his arm around my green tea best friend and swaggered away. As a result, I used that 1 million yuan to buy a second-hand supermarket, which became the strongest fortress in the apocalypse. I spent a whole day organizing, classifying, and cleaning it. Then I stocked up on some snacks that I like to eat. Ready to start my laid-back life. Before falling in love with Adam, my biggest dream was to open a supermarket of my own, so that I wouldn't have to spend money on spicy strips in the future. I don't know what the previous owner of this supermarket was thinking, but he actually built an underground secret room. Its anti-theft level is top-notch. If he hadn't told me, I wouldn't have known such a place existed. The space is a full 20 square meters. There was a pile of messy things inside. I simply cleaned up the useless things, and then spent a lot of money on a comfortable and soft bed. I plan to live in this supermarket from now on, and it would even save me the money for renting a place. The only downside was that there were no windows, just a small skylight, but fortunately, the ventilation system was quite good, so it wouldn't be too stuffy. But I never expected that this would save my life in the future. Given this, I simply went all the way and installed a solar generator. In the evening, I simply cooked a bowl of instant noodles. Since the supermarket hadn't opened yet, I locked the door early. I was chasing a drama when a push notification suddenly popped up on my phone. Riots occurred in a certain square in City A. Those scarlet words immediately piqued my curiosity and I clicked in. There was only a video less than 30 seconds long in the news. I could vaguely make out that in the crowd, a man suddenly went crazy and pounced on a woman. The woman struggled a few times and then fell still, and the man was quickly subdued by the enthusiastic onlookers. But just in the last second of the video, I suddenly saw something. I played the video again at a slower speed and carefully examined it. I suddenly noticed that the woman who had been bitten to pieces and was covered in blood suddenly sat up. A strong sense of unease instantly enveloped me. City A was actually very far from where I was, but for some reason, I just felt very uneasy. Maybe I had watched too many horror movies on a normal day, so I paid a little extra attention, but I didn't dare to tell anyone my speculation. I was afraid they would think I was exaggerating. The next day, I found a master to come to the door and reinforce the original anti-theft door with an additional layer of bulletproof material. Even that small skylight was replaced with thick bulletproof glass, and it was also the kind that prevents peeking. Then I spent a lot of money to buy dozens of large barrels of water. Fortunately, this was a supermarket, so it was quite normal to bring in these things. Subsequently, I rushed to the flower and plant market and bought some fully grown orange trees, blueberries, and strawberries. I also bought some vegetable seedlings. I gritted my teeth and took out a loan to buy 2 large fish tanks. In one, I raised dozens of fish that reproduced quickly. In the other, I raised hundreds of crabs. Even if things didn't turn out the way I thought, I could still sell these things later. After finishing all this, I locked the supermarket door tightly. For safety reasons, I even pasted a notice of closure and rental outside the supermarket. Then I nervously hid alone in the supermarket for 2 days, just when I was wondering if I had read too many novels and was just overthinking. A shrill scream suddenly came from the news that was being broadcast. In the next second, that beautiful female reporter was pounced on by a person covered in blood. There were people running for their lives everywhere on the street. As I expected, the zombie virus had really broken out. I secretly hid in the basement. After these few days of tidying up, the small basement had been transformed into a very cozy place by me. I specifically set aside half of the space for growing fruits and vegetables. There was also a fluorescent lamp installed above. It was brightly lit. I lay on the bed and turned on the surveillance camera outside the supermarket. I also saw the scene on the street. At this time, the neighborhood had fallen into chaos, and there were very few living people left. I saw a little girl being protected in her mother's arms and desperately running towards my supermarket, but she was still chased by 4 or 5 zombies. They bit her. The mother soon lost all signs of life, but 3 minutes later, she, with a blood-covered face, bit and killed her daughter in her arms. The little girl had tears all over her face, but she didn't struggle at all. I suddenly felt very sad. Maybe it was because I had no parents since I was a child, so seeing the scene touched me a bit. After humans turn into zombies, they will wander aimlessly on the street until they smell the breath of a living person, and then they will go crazy and attack again. And at this moment, there were no living people outside my supermarket. After a full 3 hours of silence, there was suddenly some movement in the property owner group on my phone. A woman asked if there were any survivors. People in the group responded to her one after another, but I didn't say anything. I just silently watched everyone discuss in the group, until a man suddenly mentioned me, to be precise, my supermarket. He asked if the owner of the newly opened supermarket downstairs was still there. Soon, the property management auntie had mentioned me. I still didn't say anything. I just stared at the messages in the group with my eyes. I knew that in the apocalypse, human nature was the most unreliable thing among zombies. The chat in the group soon speculated that I might have been killed. This was also the result I wanted to see. I knew that a few days after the apocalypse, there would be large-scale water and power outages, and that would be the real disaster. The property owners in the group also seemed to think of this and started to set their sights on my supermarket. Someone said that I should have a lot of supplies here and suggested that everyone come to my supermarket to take refuge. I frowned. Although I thought they probably couldn't pry open my multiple anti-theft doors, I still paid extra attention. I watched the surveillance camera for a whole night. These zombies were very strange. Their activity frequency would decrease significantly at night. I suspected that these zombies had poor eyesight and bit people mainly by smell and hearing, so if someone really wanted to sneak into my supermarket, they should take action at night. In this way, I was actually safer during the day, so during this period, I almost adjusted my daily routine. I watched the surveillance camera at night and used the daytime to catch up on sleep. And once someone tried to break through my first anti-theft door, I had to prepare for the worst. I watched the surveillance camera for 3 consecutive nights, and finally someone took action. I saw 5 men carefully approaching my place in the dark. Despite it being summer, everyone was dressed very tightly. They had iron pots tied to their chests and backs, although they were moving slowly. They soon reached the door of my supermarket. A man kept watch, and the leading man took out a crowbar and tried to pry open my anti-theft door, but soon he found that this door couldn't be opened just by brute force. Soon another man came out and took out a bunch of tools from his bag. I realized something was wrong. Obviously, one of these people knew how to pick locks. Fortunately, I had spent a lot of money on this door, so its structure was relatively complex. I watched the man whisper a few words to the others, and then his eyes suddenly became sharp as he looked over. It was as if he was looking at me through the surveillance camera in the dark. I broke out in a cold sweat all over my body. That man seemed to have studied my door lock thoroughly, but for some reason, he didn't unlock it immediately. Instead, he led them away. The others seemed a bit dissatisfied, but they obediently left. Fortunately, they didn't encounter any zombies on the way. After they left, I walked out of the secret room, and then silently took out a bag of cement from the corner. I took a bucket from the shelf and mixed the cement and water in the right proportion. I didn't want to do this unless it was absolutely necessary, but now I had to seal the anti-theft door, so I summoned up my courage and opened the 2 innermost doors, and then applied the cement to the position of the door gap. I used up 3 whole bags of cement to seal the door tightly. I knew that once I did this, I wouldn't be able to go out for a short time, but it could also effectively prevent people outside from coming in, and when that group of people came again, it would completely expose the fact that I was still alive. 2. Just as the sky was turning a little bit light the next day, the zombie horde attacked again. I turned on the surveillance camera and leisurely cooked myself a bowl of instant noodles. I even added an egg and a small handful of green vegetables. It was a balanced meal. At this time, the network hadn't disappeared yet, and the discussions about zombies on the internet were overwhelming. Of course, there were also many people like me who discovered something was wrong in advance and made preparations early. Some people even broadcast live the scenes of zombie attacks on the internet. There were even some people who were courting death and doing food live streams. I watched that little girl show off her figure in front of the camera while eating lobsters voraciously. I secretly cursed her for being stupid. Then I noticed that the background of the building behind her was near my residential area. If I could find this, of course others could too. I thought about it, registered an anonymous account, and reminded her. The message showed that it had been read but not replied to. Obviously, she had great confidence in her own anti-theft door. But she underestimated human nature. Now that it was a matter of life and death, if she wanted to seek death, I couldn't stop her. Sure enough, on the third day, that little girl didn't go live again. I hope it was just that her phone was out of battery, but even a zombie wouldn't believe such words. A week after that group of people left, they came again, but now there were only 4 of the original 5 people left. I don't know what happened among them during this period. I had been staring at the surveillance camera, and it made me feel very nervous all the time. I took a fierce bite of the freshly fried drumstick in my hand, and then stared intently at the surveillance camera. Then I saw the person at the end of the line suddenly stop and look at the surveillance camera again. This time, the glance was very brief, but I knew that he might have discovered me, but it didn't matter anymore. When the leading man saw the cement below, he suddenly pounded the door hard. The noise was quite loud, and it scared the people around him into quickly stopping him. Obviously, they had already discovered that there was still someone inside. Maybe they were afraid of attracting zombies, so this group of people could only leave. I secretly let out a sigh of relief, but half an hour later, the property owner group exploded. The people who had lost their minds started scolding me. Those with a bit of reason started begging me. There was even a little boy who added me and desperately wanted to be my boyfriend. I couldn't help but take a look at the photo he sent. To be honest, he was quite handsome. A man said that his wife was pregnant and about to give birth, and he begged me to share some food with them. I knew that these days, they must have searched all the supermarkets and convenience stores near here. They probably didn't dare to go to places far away, now that their food was all gone. My relatively large supermarket had become their only hope. I still didn't say anything, but I didn't leave the group either. I needed to stay in the group to eavesdrop on some information based on their discussions. What I didn't expect was that 5 days later, this group of people came again. This time, there were a full 10 of them. There was even a boy who looked like he wasn't even an adult. But the man who knew how to pick locks didn't come. I squinted my eyes, not knowing what they were going to do, but I soon found out. I had to say that there were really a lot of talented people in our residential area. They actually buried explosives in the weakest part of my wall. Obviously, these explosives were the result of what they had been tinkering with these days. The power might not be great, but the quantity was enough. It seemed that they were going to blow up the wall and then attract the zombies to bite me to death. This way, at night, the things in the supermarket could be taken by them at will, but this should also be their worst plan, because someone in the group had mentioned me again. Their bomb wouldn't explode until the next day, so they gave me one night to think about it. If I agreed to open the door, they could withdraw the bomb, but I knew that once I opened the door, this group of people wouldn't let me go either, so I decided to take a gamble. I moved all the food that was easy to store to the basement, especially the compressed biscuits and water. I moved as much as I could, until my basement was filled to the brim. I pondered for a moment and originally wanted to put some rat poison in the remaining water, but thinking that someone in the group said that his wife was pregnant, I gave up. Finally, I hid an alarm in the most hidden position of the cash register. This was the worst plan. Once someone discovered my secret room, I would pull the alarm to attract the zombies, and then use the zombies to drive them away or kill them. 3. I took one last look at the fish tank that I bought with a large sum of money. There were already some fry in it. I fished out these fry and raised them in a basin. Then I stuffed all the most expensive food in my supermarket into my stomach, trying to eat as much as I could. Then I cooked all the crabs and put them in the secret room, ready to nibble on them at night. There was also a small toilet in my secret room, and now it was also filled to the brim. All kinds of daily necessities were stuffed in it. Looking at the still full supermarket, I let out a deep sigh and decided not to be greedy anymore. I honestly sneaked into the secret room, then I locked the entrance of the secret room, removed the ladder, and used a cabinet to firmly block the entrance. This cabinet was custom made by me, and its height just coincided with the ceiling. After finishing all this, I carefully stepped over the piles of mineral water and self-heating hot pots and squeezed into my small bed that could only accommodate one person at present. There were also piles of snacks on the bed now. If there were no zombies outside, this would simply be the dream life. I stared fixedly at the surveillance camera, then I heard a loud bang. The bomb outside exploded. I clearly saw that several pieces of the wall fell off and broken bricks rolled down, but this didn't have any impact at all. I mean, how could a few fireworks and firecrackers possibly blow up a wall? But soon I couldn't laugh anymore, because I clearly saw that there were actually several speakers hidden behind the bomb. As the music sounded, dozens of zombies came running over when they heard the sound. I finally understood their plan. Their bomb couldn't actually blow up my wall, so they planned to attract the zombies to directly crash into this place, and they succeeded, because more and more zombies came. I even saw a few familiar faces among them. They frantically crashed into the wall, but the quality of that speaker was surprisingly good, and they couldn't break it no matter what. Then my wall couldn't bear the weight and collapsed. Half an hour later, the zombie horde retreated. When night fell, as I expected, those people came again, this time It wasn't just those men, there were even a lot of women and old people, some even came out as a whole family, all for the purpose of getting more food. I saw them carefully climbing in through the hole, and then they frantically stuffed food into their arms. Some people even started eating on the spot. My few fish didn't escape either. In the face of such abundant supplies, this group of people started fighting. But there were also some people who remained rational and left quickly after getting enough, and there are always greedy people in this world. During the scuffle between two men, one of them was scratched on the thigh by a broken can on the ground. The smell of blood quickly filled the air. Then, there was a rustling sound not far away, but the people who were busy grabbing supplies didn't notice. Soon, several zombies surrounded them. This group of people started running for their lives frantically, but there was only that one exit in my not very big supermarket. The zombies kept pouring in through the hole, and the smell of blood quickly attracted more zombies. In the chaos, a girl was lifted up by her boyfriend and placed on the highest shelf. I saw her tightly covering her mouth, trying not to cry. Soon, her boyfriend was pounced on by a zombie. 5 minutes later, all the people here were bitten to death. Among the broken arms and legs, some people slowly struggled to get up. Their eyes were scarlet, and their faces were covered with ugly bloodshot lines, dense like cobwebs. When everything quieted down, the girl dared to whimper softly. She hid on the shelf and didn't dare to come down for a long time. To be fair, her boyfriend treated her quite well, at least better than that scumbag Adam. Not until the next night fell did the girl dare to carefully climb down. The sparse bloodstains on the ground looked even more terrifying in the dark, but this girl didn't cry anymore. She was extremely calm. To be honest, I admired her for this. I saw the girl go to the shelf and take some food. She didn't leave. Instead, she tore open the packaging and started eating directly. After having enough to eat and drink, the girl climbed out and picked up all the bricks on the ground. I watched her with great interest. Then I found that she took all the glue from the shelf and started using the glue to stick the bricks together, and then filled the hole in the wall. After barely patching up the wall, the girl pushed over the fish tank that I had placed on the ground. The fish tank was very large. She scooped out all the water in it with a basin before she could barely move it. After using the fish tank to block the hole, she smeared the remaining glue on the edge. Then she poured all the water back in. To be honest, this method could only barely block the zombies, but it couldn't block those people. They would definitely come back, because the food would run out sooner or later. I didn't know why the girl didn't leave, but as long as she didn't leave, I could only hide in the secret room. The next day, as soon as it dawned, a little light barely shone through the skylight of the supermarket. In the dim sunlight, the girl's eyes were extremely clear and calm. I shuddered for no reason. I don't know why, but she always gave me a very dangerous feeling, and this feeling was soon confirmed. For 1 month after the zombies surrounded the city, I was living quite comfortably in the underground secret room of the second-hand supermarket. This day, I was sitting with my legs crossed, eating potato chips that were about to expire, and watching the girl on the surveillance camera busily reinforcing the hole. Suddenly, she stopped what she was doing. Her bright eyes stared straight at me through the screen. I was taken aback. Had she discovered me? Sure enough, I saw her frown in confusion, and then she slowly walked over with a broom and smashed the surveillance camera hard. The screen in front of me instantly went black. I completely lost the surveillance of the supermarket, listening to the sound of the girl's shoes stepping on the floor, making a pattering sound. I felt a sudden sense of panic in my heart. I even regretted not going up to slit her throat when she was sleeping, but it was too late to regret now. This girl was a ticking time bomb. Fortunately, the surveillance camera outside was still intact, and I could monitor the outside situation at any time. Soon, night fell and the zombie horde retreated again. This kind of situation continued for several days, as more and more people discovered the pattern that these zombies would only move during the day. More and more people came to search for food nearby, although there were also people who accidentally attracted zombies. Most people were safe. I knew that the situation should end soon, because the government had established a safe zone in the northwest desert. It was a place with few people, and there were few zombies. As soon as the zombie horde broke out, the military quickly took control of that place. I saw that many people had sneaked into the garage at night and drove away from this neighborhood with their families. But that girl didn't leave. She still lived in my supermarket. Sometimes she would knock on the floor, not knowing what she was looking for. I suspected that she had already discovered the existence of the secret room and even knew about my existence. 3 days later, the girl finally found the entrance to my secret room. She tried to pry open the wooden board but failed. Every day after that, I could hear the harsh sound of a knife scratching against the metal at the entrance. And there was a knife placed by my bedside. Once she dared to come in, I would kill her immediately. On the 3rd day of the girl's persistent attempt to pry open the floor, suddenly, the sound of a car engine came from outside. I was horrified to see through the surveillance camera that 4 big men got out of a van, and 2 of them had tattoos on their arms. What made me feel even more chilled was that they were actually carrying guns. The men quickly discovered the hole in the supermarket wall and easily removed the bricks that the girl had painstakingly pieced together. As for that fish tank, in the face of absolute power, it was simply worthless. After they went in, I had no idea what was going on inside. I could only vaguely hear some voices of conversation, but the sound insulation here was quite good, so I couldn't hear clearly what they were saying. Just when I was at a loss, the entrance to the secret room began to be pounded furiously. They seemed to have covered part of the sound with a towel. I could only hear a muffled thumping sound above, like a hammer hitting my heart little by little. Obviously, that girl had betrayed me. Without hesitation, I pressed the alarm that I had locked in the cash register safe. The sound was very loud, and I could hear it even in the basement. Then I saw through the outside surveillance camera that zombies began to come running when they heard the sound. The knocking sound above the secret room also stopped, and only the sound of flustered footsteps remained. To my surprise, they were smarter than I thought. I saw two men run to the car, and one of them was holding the safe with the alarm in it. Then the car ran over the approaching zombies, splashing a spray of blood and flesh. These two men actually chose to drive away to lure the zombies away. At this moment, I knew that I was finished. My mind began to race. About half an hour later, I heard the sound of a blunt object hitting the door above again. Soon, the sound of the car came again. It seemed that the two men had successfully shaken off the zombies and thrown away the safe with the alarm in it. With the addition of these two men, I heard the door of the secret room begin to creak. The wooden cabinet also began to shake slightly. The fear at this moment was even stronger than when the zombie outbreak first occurred. I forced myself to calm down and then stuffed all the heavy objects I could find into the cabinet, trying to increase its weight. But those people seemed determined to find me. I heard a man let out a soft exclamation, and then the sound of a chainsaw was heard. Fortunately, the people beside him stopped him in time, because this might attract the zombies. Soon, all of them got into the car, but for some reason, the car didn't start immediately. Soon, I knew the answer, because the sound of the chainsaw sounded again the next second. At the same time, that girl also got into their car. The car parked quietly on the side. I was horrified to find that the zombies were coming again. At this moment, I felt that these zombies were like monkeys being played with, but soon I couldn't laugh anymore, because the chainsaw had penetrated the wooden board of the cabinet through the gap they had pried open, and wood chips were falling down swishingly. My heart also gradually cooled down. I knew that I couldn't escape. 5. When they dragged me out, I only saw a lot of zombie corpses on the ground. The men were all covered in blood and looked a bit. The leading big man lifted my chin, looked at me left and right, and then stood up and indifferently ordered his subordinates, "Let's go." I knew that he didn't intend to kill me, but if I was left here, I definitely couldn't survive, so I could only bite the bullet and stand up, looking straight into the big man's eyes. "You have to take me with you." He seemed to be a bit interested, looking at me with a playful look in his eyes. "The safe zone you're going to now is 463 kilometers away from here. Even if you fill the car with all the supplies here, you definitely won't be able to last more than a week. You still need to refuel the car on the way. I'm familiar with the roads around here and can lead you out of the city at the fastest speed. Moreover, when you get to the safe zone, how will the four of you men live?" And I suddenly raised my hand and pointed at the girl beside me, saying in a clear voice, "I'm prettier than her." When I said this, all of them looked at me with a very strange look, but I straightened my back and let them look at me. This was true. That scumbag Adam fell in love with me because I was good-looking. The leading man was silent for a while, and then he waved to the others and said, "Take her with us." A man opened his mouth and didn't seem willing, but he didn't say anything. I saw the girl beside me looking a bit stunned, then she almost ran and hugged the leg of one of the men, raising a pitiful face with tears in her eyes. "Andrew, what about me?" The man called Andrew was a thin man wearing glasses. He looked a bit hesitant and then said to the leading man, "Brother Chu, why don't we take Zara with us too? She's thin and doesn't eat much, and the idea just now was also proposed by her." The man called Brother Chu nodded and slightly raised his chin. "Take her." While they were talking, I had already helped carry several boxes of food to the car. I could even vaguely feel the sharp gaze of Brother Chu on me. I didn't know which words convinced him to keep me. After we loaded the car with a full load of food and daily necessities, we got into the van. Since many positions in the car were filled with things, there was no space left for me and that girl. The girl named Zara sat on Andrew's lap. I was held in the arms of a muscular man with a stronger build. The man called Brother Chu was in charge of driving. The remaining man sat in the passenger seat and was responsible for giving directions with a map. The car hadn't driven for long when I heard the girl's soft gasps beside me. I turned my head and saw that Andrew had already put his hand into Zara's clothes. I looked at the man holding me nervously. There were a few rare blushes on his dark face, but he didn't do anything. This made me feel a bit at ease, but I still remained highly nervous throughout the journey until we drove to a service area and took a short rest there. This was a service area on the highway, so there were very few people around. They patrolled around with their guns. After finding no zombies, while I was busy serving tea, water, massaging their legs and shoulders for these masters, that Andrew couldn't wait to hug Zara and rush into the restroom of the service area. After a while, Zara's faint moans came out. I pretended not to see anything and continued to serve them attentively, lighting a fire and cooking for them. The muscular man holding me seemed to be unable to stand it and wanted to come and help. I also persuaded him to stop. I knew that in this team, I had to show my value, otherwise, like Zara, in normal times it would be okay, but when in danger, she would be the first one to be abandoned. Of course, the second one would be me. After preparing the food for them, I took a dagger and silently patrolled around. I replenished some missing supplies on the car and filled the car with gas. I also filled the empty gas cans on the car with a full load of gasoline, filling 2 large cans. After finishing all this, I found a still usable faucet and filled a small bucket with clean water. I carried it around and washed the arms and necks of the 3 brothers that were exposed outside. I could feel that the man who didn't agree to take me with him at first had changed his look at me. I didn't dare to wash my face. I just washed my hands and neck. Then I took off my shoes and socks and washed my feet. At this time, I felt a burning gaze. When I looked back, it was that Andrew. He looked very proud. At this moment, his eyes were staring straight at my exposed feet. After washing, they were fair and delicate. I quickly stuffed my feet into my shoes, not even having time to put on my socks, and then ran away in a hurry. Andrew didn't chase after me, but the way he looked at me was very disgusting and blatant. When I got back to the car, they had all finished resting and were ready to set off. During the rest just now, I also figured out the identities of these people. They were all neighbors in the same residential area. The muscular man holding me was called Alex, and he was a policeman. The gun was also obtained by him. The leading brother Chu was called Adrian. Andrew was still Andrew, and the other man who didn't like to talk was called Arthur. As for that girl, her name was Zara, and she was a junior and senior schoolmate of Andrew's in university. Later, I heard from Alex that Andrew had chased after Zara a few years ago, but Zara didn't like him. Who would have thought? I secretly glanced at Zara and couldn't help but admire her a bit. She was really a capable person who knew how to adapt. At this time, I accidentally met Andrew's gaze and suddenly felt nauseous. In this team, Adrian was the most unpredictable, Alex was the most innocent, and Arthur was cold on the outside but warm on the inside. Only Andrew was an idiot with dirty thoughts in his head. That night, we found a relatively quiet service area to rest. In order to prevent someone from running away with the supplies in the middle of the night and also to prevent any danger, we all squeezed into one room to rest. But in the middle of the night, someone crept up to me. I was woken up by being touched. When I woke up, I saw Andrew's glasses shining with a cold light. One hand was tightly covering my mouth. The other hand was clumsily unbuttoning my clothes. This pervert. After I reacted, I directly kicked him with all my strength. When I was in university, because of my interest, I joined the Taekwondo club. My strength was accurate and fierce. Sure enough, the next second, Andrew's pig-killing scream rang out in the night. The others were also awakened one after another. I took the opportunity to quickly get up and hide behind Alex. Then I pinched my thigh hard. The pain made me squeeze out a few tears. I hugged Alex's waist and kept crying, making him a bit at a loss. As a policeman, his sense of justice made him despise Andrew's behavior. I saw Adrian's cold gaze sweep over. I subconsciously shrank my head again. These people might have all been good young men before, but the apocalypse would only magnify people's bad qualities infinitely. After all, in the apocalypse, not to mention rape and plunder, even if someone slit another person's throat in public, no one would say anything. Therefore, after the incident was exposed, Andrew behaved extremely calmly. He was even extremely reasonable and straightforward. Adrian didn't say much either. He just gave him a punch and warned him to control his lower body and not cause trouble for them. I saw Andrew's face turn sinister all of a sudden. I suddenly felt a sense of unease in my heart, and my unease was soon confirmed. 5. Andrew ran away, taking Zara and a car full of supplies with him, and drove away without looking back. I had long known that Andrew couldn't be trusted, but I didn't expect him to be so unreliable. He took the opportunity when Adrian and the others got out of the car to search for supplies. He made an excuse that he needed to pee and then ran away directly with Zara. I was the first to discover it, but I only managed to grab one box of supplies from the car. When Adrian and the others rushed over, Andrew had already locked the car door. When Alex chased after him, he clung tightly to the car door with both hands, but was dragged for dozens of meters. There were bloodstains all over his arms from being rubbed by the coarse sand. Looking extremely embarrassed, I opened the box of supplies that I had snatched from the car, only to find that it contained half a box of toilet paper, and the other half was filled with sanitary pads. Under Adrian's lip that was like looking at a fool. My face instantly turned red. Alex cursed Andrew. He was now very annoyed because Andrew had the best relationship with him on weekdays, and it was he who had helped to bring Andrew into the team and made Adrian agree to take him, but complaining was useless. At present, there were still 983 kilometers to the safe zone. Without a car, it was obviously impossible for us to reach there on foot. Fortunately, this time we stopped at a service area that wasn't too deserted. There were a lot of private cars in it, but at the same time, there were still a few zombies wandering around here. This was also the reason why Adrian and the others didn't dare to shoot to stop Andrew just now. In case they didn't stop him and attracted the zombies instead, they would really be wiped out. Fortunately, the number of zombies here wasn't large. Roughly estimated, there were only about a dozen, but at present, the most important thing was that we weren't sure if there were other zombies around and whether they would come over when they heard the sound. Moreover, the bullets in their guns added up to only 10 rounds left. If they couldn't shoot the zombies in the head with one shot, it would be a complete waste of bullets. At this time, Arthur, who had been silent all this time, suddenly stood up. He decided to be the one to attract those zombies alone. The rest of us would go to find a car and then pick him up. This decision was very dangerous. Once we didn't pick him up in time or someone had ulterior motives like Andrew on the way, Arthur was completely putting his life in our hands. I thought for a while and finally didn't say anything. Alex seemed to want to say something, but was held back by Adrian. Arthur ran a long way, until his figure shrank into a small dot. He suddenly pointed to the sky and fired a shot. The zombies all raised their heads when they heard the sound, and then their eyes turned scarlet as they chased in Arthur's direction. After they all chased over, the three of us quickly started to act. Logically speaking, I was just there to make up the numbers, because my relationship with these people wasn't deep. I also didn't know why they were still willing to take me with them. In fact, it would have been the best for me to be the one to attract the zombies just now. But it was me who unexpectedly found a car that could start first. 6. I glanced at Adrian, who was a few minutes away from me, and my eyes suddenly became determined. Then I resolutely opened the car door and sat in the driver's seat. As I started the car, I roughly looked at the direction in my mind, and then stepped on the accelerator hard. The car roared and shot out like an arrow leaving the bow, kicking up a cloud of dust. In the rearview mirror, I could vaguely see Adrian's gradually cold eyes. When the car ran over the body of the first zombie, the wheels made a creaking sound that made my scalp tingle. I stepped on the accelerator to the bottom, but my heart was pounding wildly. A zombie rushed over, with its two eyeballs protruding and clinging tightly to the car window. I was startled, but I didn't let up on the accelerator. The zombie was quickly thrown out, and I finally reached Arthur's side. At this moment, he looked very miserable. A large piece of the clothes on his back was torn off, but fortunately, there were no wounds. While I stopped, 2 more zombies rushed up. Arthur shot them in the head with a single shot, and then quickly opened the car door and jumped in. I stepped on the accelerator again almost the moment he sat down, causing Arthur to almost be thrown out as he lost his balance. He gave me a slightly resentful look, but didn't say anything. Now wasn't the time to chat either, because the remaining 5 zombies had already chased after us. I couldn't go back to pick up Adrian and the others anymore. Now I had to lead these 5 zombies away with Arthur. Later, Arthur described me at that moment as if I had taken 2 pounds of marijuana. When I parked the car in front of Adrian and the others with a drift, Alex's mouth opened so wide that it could fit an egg. Then I proudly raised my eyebrows at the 2 of them and said, "Get in the car." The next second, Adrian opened the car door and threw me out of the driver's seat like lifting a little chicken. What an ungrateful bastard. But the reason I saved Arthur wasn't because I had a sudden burst of kindness or my conscience hadn't been completely lost. I simply knew that I couldn't reach the safe zone on my own, and Adrian and the others seemed to be pretty good people to rely on. At least Alex and Arthur were nice guys. After Alex filled the car with gas, he filled 2 more barrels of gas. This place must have been raided by someone before, so there weren't many supplies. They searched the whole house and only found a few hard-steamed buns and 2 packs of pickled mustard greens. This place wasn't suitable to stay for long, so we got on the road immediately after searching. Unexpectedly, things in this world were just so coincidental. It really was true that enemies always seem to meet. At the next service area, we met Andrew and Zara again, but their current situation didn't seem right, because there were 3 fierce-looking men surrounding them. It seemed that they had been robbed. Adrian and the others had nothing to lose, as we had no supplies, so we weren't afraid of being robbed. The 3 big men glared at Adrian and the others a bit fiercely, but in terms of numbers, we were about the same, so we managed to get along peacefully. We even chatted a bit off and on. As for Andrew, except that Alex was a bit angry at first, Adrian and the others completely ignored Andrew and Zara. Zara threw several flirtatious glances at Adrian and the others, but they were all ignored. It was me who saw it and threw a few flirtatious glances back at Zara, which made her very angry. The 3 big men took the initiative to strike up a conversation. Seeing us eating dry steamed buns, they even gave each of us an expired ham sausage and half a bottle of mineral water. They wanted to team up with us and go to the safe zone together. Adrian raised his eyelids when he heard this and looked at Andrew with interest, then said that he didn't want to be with a despicable person. The intention of the big man was obvious to everyone. He wanted to use the supplies in his hand to make Adrian and the others work for him, and when there was danger in the future, Adrian and the others would have to be the first to go, and in the apocalypse, who would hand over their back to someone they didn't know at all? Adrian said this just to disgust Andrew. We didn't see eye to eye, and there was no more conversation after that, but there was a person in the team who gave me a vague sense of familiarity, yet I couldn't remember where I had seen him before. 7. We just took a short rest at the service area and then continued on our way, but there was a person in the group that had robbed Andrew who always gave me a very dangerous feeling. However, fortunately, we didn't have much interaction with them. At this time, our group was gradually approaching the Northwest Desert. I had my period once on the way, and it almost attracted the zombies, but fortunately, it ended without any major problems. Later, we found that the blood of the zombies could cover up the smell, so we began to hunt down the lone zombies and smear the blood on the car. This trick really worked, but later, when the water resources became scarce, we all smelled terrible, like beggars on the street. Adrian and the others even had thick beards. Come to think of it, they were already bearded when I first met them, so I didn't even know what kind of appearance was hidden under that thick beard. Now there were less than 300 kilometers to the safe zone, and our supplies finally ran out. This morning, Arthur had diarrhea and used up the last half roll of toilet paper. As a result, he had a look that said stay away from me all morning. Now we still had to drive for a whole day and night to reach the safe zone, and the closer we got to the safe zone, the more zombies there were, because the surrounding zombies would be attracted by the large-scale human activities, so if we wanted to get in, we had to break through the zombie horde. If we let a group of people who had been hungry for 2 days deal with the zombies, it was clearly like sending them to be the zombies' food. So the most urgent thing now was to find supplies as soon as possible. According to the map, the nearest place to us was City F, which was also the only big city near the safe zone. If we were lucky, we might even meet the personnel from the safe zone who came here to search, and then we could smoothly follow them into the safe zone. Of course, there was also a possibility of meeting other teams heading to the safe zone. It would be okay if the two sides got along peacefully. The most feared thing was that a conflict would break out. We waited until it was dark before daring to enter the city. As soon as we entered the city, we encountered an obstacle. Several zombies were wriggling their stiff bodies towards us. Fortunately, we had developed a good deal of tacit understanding along the way. With the cooperation of several of us, it was no problem to deal with 7 or 8 zombies. Even I could skillfully use a knife to accurately stab a zombie in the head. After dealing with these zombies, we skillfully smeared the zombie blood on ourselves. Arthur even removed a zombie's arm for self-defense. We entered the city very smoothly. The city was full of zombie corpses, with broken walls and ruins everywhere, and thick smoke rising. A few zombies were wandering on the street. They seemed a bit confused about our sudden intrusion, but at this time they were just mindless puppets. They couldn't judge whether we were the same kind, of course. There were also some particularly reckless zombies. Once a zombie approached, Alex and the others would calmly twist their necks. What a group of savage humans. We swept through several convenience stores in a row, and only found 2 cans of stinky tofu that were about to expire in the corner. Alex's face turned completely black when he saw the stinky tofu. I wasn't picky about food, but eating too much of this stuff was really salty. We put the stinky tofu in the car and continued to search. Finally, we found half a bag of bread and 2 bags of frozen dumplings in the refrigerator of a house. Adrian and the others sealed the doors and windows and drew the curtains. I tested the gas tank in the house and found that it could still be used. It was a pity that there was no water coming out of the faucet. We could only fry the dumplings in a pan. There were 48 dumplings to be divided among 4 people. I only dared to take 8 dumplings for myself. Alex looked at me and picked 2 dumplings from his own bowl and put them in mine. When I met his confused gaze, he just scratched his head embarrassedly and said that he couldn't eat so many, but the next second, Adrian picked the 2 dumplings from my bowl. Just right, I don't have enough. At that moment, I wanted to kill Adrian. 8. After our short rest, while it was still not dawn, we searched several more houses. Fortunately, we found 3 packs of spicy strips in a box of expired crispy noodles. I almost cried with joy when I saw the spicy strips. There was also half a bag of flour and 2 cans of cola, but we couldn't eat the flour directly, so we had to sacrifice the 2 cans of cola and pour them into the flour. We made 8 big pancakes on the spot. Adrian and the others also managed to gather a box of gasoline from the cars on the street, just as we were almost done searching and ready to retreat. Suddenly a piercing scream cut through the night sky. Adrian was stunned when he heard it and actually prepared to go and investigate. I knew that he wasn't the kind of person who meddled in other people's business, and in the apocalypse, it was better to avoid getting involved in extra matters, but I didn't have much say in the team. Arthur and the others didn't have any objections either. Moving together with us were also a large number of zombies. The number of them made my scalp tingle. Soon, We saw a group of people surrounded by the zombie horde. When I saw the man and woman protected in the middle clearly, even with my composure, I couldn't help but swear. Question: when you encounter your ex-boyfriend and your green tea best friend surrounded by zombies, should you laugh first or clap first? I'm waiting online. It's urgent. I really didn't expect to meet Adam and Maya in such a situation, if I had known. I would have saved a pack of melon seeds from between my teeth to watch the show. It seemed that Alex noticed my abnormality. He asked me with great interest, "Do you know them?" I knew them more than just knowing them. I nodded excitedly and was just about to tell him the stories between me and those two people when Adrian interrupted our conversation. Get ready. What? Get ready for what? I looked at Adrian's face covered by his beard and suddenly had a rather cheesy thought in my mind. Then I met Adrian's extremely determined eyes. Save them, Adrian. Are you out of your mind? I looked at him coldly. I didn't expect that there was such a saintly person like Adrian in our team. You can go and seek death if you want. I won't stop you, but we won't accompany you to die for someone we don't know, unless you can give me a reason why we have to go. Yeah, Brother Chu, even if you want to let us accompany you to die, at least let us die knowing why, right? Arthur said in a deep voice. Alex also looked at him steadily and quietly blocked his way. While we were talking, the zombies had already surrounded Adam and the others. Adrian lowered his head and looked at me, saying in a faint voice, "What have you noticed?" I frowned and looked carefully in Adam's direction again. He and Maya were in the middle position, protected by a group of people. It was reasonable to say that in the apocalypse, this group of people had no reason to protect them. Unless there was something on the two of them that they had to protect, and this was likely to be related to their lives. Could it be? I looked at Adrian in surprise and disbelief. He shook his head and said that he wasn't sure either. If you want to know the answer, the only way is to save the two of them first. I nodded and expressed my agreement. It was a bit risky, but it wasn't a big problem. Arthur should also have realized something and stopped speaking. Only Alex, scratching his head, wanted to ask something, but finally didn't open his mouth. He had unconditional trust in the few of us. The group of people protecting Adam had already started fighting with the zombies. I saw Maya leaning weakly on Adam with a delicate look. It was really annoying. I still had to save these two people. Although I was extremely dissatisfied in my heart, I still took action quickly. Arthur was responsible for driving the car to pick us up. We were responsible for rescuing the two of them from the rear. When we arrived, the group of people protecting Adam had almost all been killed, with these people fighting in the front. Rescuing Adam and the others was a bit smoother than we expected. When we were retreating, I saw Maya clinging tightly to Alex's arm. In her opinion, the big and strong Alex should be more secure. The weak Adam could only follow us alone, but I could feel his gaze falling on me from time to time. I was dealing with the zombies that came running when I heard the sound and also keeping an eye on the two of them at the same time. Just then, a zombie rushed towards Maya. She let out a scream and actually pushed Alex out heavily. Alex lost his balance due to the sudden push and could only use his arm to block the zombie's attack, even though I quickly rushed over to deal with that zombie. Alex's arm was still bitten with a bloody wound. My heart instantly turned cold. Alex's face also lost its color. He looked at me in surprise, and the culprit, Maya, had already hidden behind Adam. The incident just now happened too quickly. If I hadn't been paying attention to Maya all the time, I wouldn't have seen her actions, but now wasn't the time to blame her. I quickly cut off the piece of flesh on Alex's arm that had been bitten. This could barely prevent the spread of the zombie virus. Then I protected Alex behind me and covered their retreat. Adrian also came to my side at this time. Maya's scream attracted a lot of zombies. It was a bit difficult for me and Adrian to deal with them. Several times we almost got scratched by the zombies. Fortunately, at this time, the sound of the car engine finally came. Arthur had arrived in time. But just then, the zombies in the city, for some unknown reason, rushed towards us like crazy. Just then, Alex pulled me and Adrian behind him. He picked up an abandoned iron rod lying on the roadside and rushed towards the zombie horde with a shout. The last word Alex said to us was, "Go." Adrian was silent for a moment, then pulled me and ran. I looked back and saw Alex gradually being swallowed up by the zombies. The big boy who would blush when he smiled was gone just like that, and we finally managed to escape into the car. 9. The car accelerated and drove for more than an hour before stopping in an open field. I looked coldly at Maya, who was cowering in Adam's arms, and then roughly pulled her out of the car. "What are you doing? You're crazy," Maya shrieked hysterically without any scruples. I directly slapped her across the face. "Shut up." I ripped off the mask on my face. When Maya saw my face clearly, a look of surprise and uncertainty appeared on her face. Cleo, it seemed that my good best friend hadn't forgotten me. Maya and I were in the same high school. And then we went to the same university. Because of our old classmate relationship, I had always been very nice to Maya. She was beautiful and delicate, and I had always been kind enough to help her fend off those annoying suitors. Later I found out that all those so-called annoying suitors were actually people she had secretly flirted with. Maya, long time no see. I took out the short knife that I had used to deal with the zombies just now. The blade was already dark red from the blood. "Cleo, What are you going to do? Maya was obviously nervous. You owe me a life, and you have to pay it back, right? Cleo. Adam walked forward with a troubled expression. I looked at him coldly. Don't call me that. It's disgusting. Adam opened his mouth but didn't say anything. He just silently stood in front of Maya. TSK. This apocalyptic love was really touching. Adrian and the others should have seen the grudge between me and Adam and the others, so they didn't interfere. But I knew that I couldn't kill Maya now, but it was necessary to scare her a little. Arthur, pull this annoying person away from me. Arthur was also very angry at this time. Alex's death had hit him hard. He silently took Adam away and even had the foresight to cover his mouth. Maya looked at me and suddenly calmed down. There was even a sneer on her lips. Cleo, you can't touch me, without me and Adam. You won't be able to enter the safe zone. Sure enough, I was shocked in my heart. But I still frowned and deliberately pretended to be. Who are you trying to bluff? I know exactly how much you're worth. As for Adam, what does he have besides a little money? Maya looked at me with a look of disdain. The safe zone is already full now. It's impossible to accept any more survivors. Even so, what ability do you have to get in? Because Adam has been bitten by a zombie. When she said this, not only me, but even the always calm Adrian showed a look of surprise. Arthur directly opened Adam's clothes, and sure enough, he found a ferocious bite mark on his arm. There were black lines all around it, looking extremely terrifying. Since Adam hadn't turned into a zombie after being bitten, it meant that there was already an antibody in his body, and taking him with us was equivalent to having a human-shaped pass, because the antibody meant the possibility of cracking the zombie virus. No wonder that group of people had desperately protected these two, however. I looked at Maya coldly. What does Adam having an antibody have to do with you? Maya raised her head at this, her eyes filled with a taunting smile. Then she gently placed her hand on her belly. What do you think? She said, looking at me provocatively. I didn't expect that in this apocalypse, they still had the energy to conceive a child, but I really couldn't touch her now. After all, the little life in her belly was innocent. Even Arthur gently shook his head at me. My eyes suddenly felt a bit sore. A sense of powerlessness welled up in my heart. I suddenly remembered that a long time ago, we had encountered an attack from a group of people. There was a very thin boy in that team, with a face, just having come of age. At first, we didn't take him seriously and didn't kill him, but he secretly led the zombies over at night, almost causing our entire group to be wiped out. Later, when I wanted to kill him, Alex stopped me. I didn't understand why at first. Alex told me, Cleo, even in the apocalypse, don't let yourself fall into the darkness. I still remember when he said these words. The light shone on him. Alex was surrounded by a warm golden light all over. Alex, he was really a very, very good person, and he was the first ray of light I met in the apocalypse. But now, my light was gone. How could I let Maya go? 10. We were now less than 30 kilometers away from the safe zone, from a long distance away. I could hear the zombies howling all night long. There was always a proud smile on Maya's face. Adam tried to talk to me several times, but I didn't even look at him. 3 hours later, we had reached the vicinity of the safe zone. There were already a lot of survivors who had come from various places gathered here. From what they said, we learned some news. It turned out that the real obstacle for them wasn't the zombies outside, but the people in the safe zone. They had attacked the gate of the safe zone several times, but the people inside refused to open the door no matter what. After such 2 attempts, they suffered heavy casualties, so they didn't dare to break into the safe zone again, but so many people couldn't just wait to die outside like this. However, at present, these survivors couldn't really trust each other completely, so no one took the initiative to break the silence, and they all looked at the people in other teams warily, but everyone couldn't keep like this forever. There would always be someone who would be the first to break the deadlock, but I never expected that this person would be Maya. Maya stepped forward gracefully, cleared her throat, and said, everyone. All of a sudden, everyone's eyes were drawn to her. At present, we can definitely make a deal with the people in the safe zone, because we have an absolute bargaining chip. There is already a person with an antibody in our team. When she said this, I secretly cursed her for being stupid, but I didn't stop Maya. Instead, I watched coldly as she continued, as long as the people in the safe zone know this news, they will definitely let us in. She spoke with great confidence. There were some people around who were tempted, but still. No one took the initiative to speak. Maya wasn't embarrassed either. She continued to speak on her own. Now someone needs to deliver this message. So, I suggest. Maya paused and her eyes fell on me. Cleo, you won't be unwilling, right? I laughed coldly. Maya, you say there is an antibody, but who knows if you're lying? Why would I lie? Besides, you all have seen, we saved you out of kindness, but you turned around and pushed me out to die. In the apocalypse. Those who survived were all shrewd people. Everyone understood Maya's little scheme, so no one had paid attention to her just now. Since you say there is an antibody, you surely won't be afraid of being bitten. In that case, we might as well just throw you out to deliver the message, right? No, Maya shouted shrilly. The one with the antibody isn't me. Oh, I looked at her with a half smile. Sure enough, she pulled Adam out of the team and rolled up his sleeve. The bite mark on his arm was ferocious and terrifying. Now the people around believed it, and there were whispers in the crowd. It seems that you have a close relationship, everyone. We obviously can't hand over the antibodies so easily. Why don't I escort this lady to the safe zone to report the news? The people didn't object to this. After all, they didn't have to go and risk their lives. Only Adrian opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but he didn't say it in the end. I gave him a cold look and didn't say anything more. It was Maya who flatly refused and insisted on staying here, but how could I give her a chance to refuse? After all, we still had a big score to settle, because it was related to their own lives. Maya was very quiet during this journey. I drove the car and didn't even spare her a single glance. The sound of the car quickly attracted the zombie horde. They chased after us in a rush. I stepped on the accelerator hard. The wheels ran over the heads of several zombies. I seemed to be able to hear the sound of their brains bursting. At this time, a zombie suddenly grabbed onto the car window. Maya was so frightened that she let out a scream. I directly stabbed a knife into her thigh. If you don't want to die, shut your mouth. Maya glared at me resentfully and finally stopped screaming. Blood kept gushing out from the wound on her leg. The smell of blood quickly attracted more zombies. Maya looked at me in surprise and disbelief. Cleo, you did this on purpose, didn't you? She covered the wound tightly. I showed her a big smile with my white teeth. Don't worry, you still owe me a life. I won't let you die so easily. The smell of blood attracted the large zombie horde, and they moved further and further away from the safe zone. At the same time, I saw a black SUV rushing towards the safe zone at high speed. This was exactly the plan that Adrian and I had come up with. The reason I brought Maya was to lead the zombies away from them. Maya seemed to have figured this out as well. She shrieked and rushed over to grab the steering wheel. I directly slashed a knife across her arm. Warm blood splashed all over me. In the apocalypse, my world had long been plunged into darkness. When I saw that black SUV successfully drive into the safe zone, my car finally ran out of fuel. The zombies quickly swarmed around the car. The car window shattered with a crash. Maya deserved to die, but the child in her belly was innocent, so let me pay for this little guy's life. I felt sharp teeth bite into my neck. It hurt a little bit, but soon I lost consciousness. I should be dead, right? When I regained consciousness again, I saw Adrian's rough face. He was bearded and looked extremely ugly, but why was I still alive? And what about Maya? When I woke up, Adrian quickly grabbed my hand. I saw that his eyes were red. What's going on? They didn't extract the antibody from Adam's blood. The reason he wasn't infected was that he received a transfusion of someone else's blood in a car accident. That person is the real carrier of the antibody. I remembered that when I was in a relationship with Adam before, he had a car accident and needed an emergency blood transfusion. Without hesitation, I gave him 400 milliliters of my blood. In the end, it turned out that I was the unlucky one with the antibody. Looking at the doctors in white coats walking towards me with excited faces, I knew that I was going to suffer a lot in the future. I had struggled in the darkness, but in the end, I became the light that saved the world. The world was really strange.